Hi, everyone. I'm going to explain how we started this and why we called this meeting. There's a documentary that we're doing called Trapped. And one of the young kings that's in our documentary is a man that is our guest speaker today, and that's Wagga. And what touched me the most and why I'm going so hard for this particular episode is because Wagga, who was a former leader of the Gators, really speaks openly about losing his son to gun violence. And I have to say, I totally respect and rate the fact that he's not playing the blame game. He looks at himself and he says he reaped what he sowed. So because of his story, I intended to bring him on and speak to some people about, the real of what's going on. And as I was planning that, there's a young man. His name is Marcel from One by One, and he's also a guest speaker. And he reached out to me, and he's really showing love to Think Twice. And I didn't know Marcel, but as I said, he reached out, and as I was speaking to him, he let me know that he was also the leader of the Looney Tunes. And I was like, yo, in this time, I think it would be amazing if the two of them would come on and really speak to some of the issues that they see is going on right now, and talk about what's happening in the community now compared to back then. These two kings have never spoken to each other or communicated, so this is a really, really, really big day. Now I'm not saying that we're here to solve any problems. I'm not here to say any of that. What I am here to say is they're going to share the stage and speak from their heart about some of the issues that the community is facing, and some of the pieces that they have to do with it. Right? So that's what we're doing. So that's why today is a really big day, and that's basically why we're here today. So I'm going to hand it over to the next two hosts, and let's get to the panelists. Mikey and Tash.
You guys are muted. Mikey, you're muted.
Sorry, guys, for a minute, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties.
All right, that's fine. I think we just have to wait for the presenter to unmute us for now. I just like to thank you guys for taking the time to attend this session. Zia, my sister, thank you very much for allowing me to be actually be a host on this platform. I think this topic is a very important topic. We've been dealing with gun violence now for a few years. And we seem to have, we always try to see that we have the solutions to this problem, but the problem just continues to escalate. I think everybody in Toronto and around the world, has to do their part. And I think Zia, by you and Think Twice, putting on this platform for the first time I've ever seen in Toronto before, having two rivals actually come together and speak about some of the issues and speak about some of the problems that is facing our society, right? I think that is important, and that's what's needed. I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you guys all for coming out and taking part in this. I hope this will enlighten you in understanding what is really taking place in the city, opposed to what you hear is going on in the city. So right. Zia, thank you very much. Natasha.
Hey, everybody. So as Jackie said, I'm Natasha. I'm a part of Think Twice. I speak for Think Twice, and I did lose my fiance due to gun violence. Again, just to repeat what Mikey said, yes, Zia, I respect and love what you're doing for the community. I think that this session here is something that really needs to be heard, because I'm sure a lot of us can relate to gun violence, whether we lost somebody to gun violence or we know somebody that may be incarcerated due to living a certain lifestyle, whatever the case may be. So I just hope everybody enjoys the session today and really takes in the message. Take notes if you need to. The message board, as Jackie mentioned, is open for any questions or anything.
All right. So Tash, we're gonna start with you and Marcel.
All right, sorry, I had to get unmuted again. Okay, so I'm going to start with Marcel. Marcel Wilson was a president of the One by One movement, once known as King Khan, who was a former gang leader of the Looney Tunes and a member of the Tiny Toons gang. He was also affiliated with the United Blood Nation, and he became an organized gang figure. I don't know if Marcel wanted to just introduce himself or just let everybody know who he is.
I'm gonna play a piece of his documentary real quick.
Okay.
Oh. Don't let me play it.
We like to deal with more of the square root of the issue, which is social, economic issues, mental health issues, those kinds of things, which is what we're focused on. Yeah. Doesn't matter the tool. What leads a kid to pick up a gun and want to use that tool in the first place?
Yeah. So what are you doing that is effectively changing the criminal mind?
There's a group of neighborhoods that have actively been at war.
Okay.
And, you know, real people, real kids are dying in these things. So we've managed to get a lot of the leadership from these different areas together and show kids that we don't want them to go down the same path that we took.
And that's Marcel. Thank you, Marcel. We're gonna come to you in 1 minute. And then Mikey, if you could introduce Wagga.
I think for me personally, to introduce Wagga, it's an honor, first of all, to introduce this young man, big man now, but you know, knowing Wagga for a long time, know where he's coming from, knowing his challenges that he's overcome, you know, knowing his resiliency that he has within himself to overcome some of those difficulties that a disadvantaged youth, or you know, a youth that's grown up in a marginalized community can overcome. And being able to do that now, and looking back at his life and seeing that, you know, change is needed and did change, you know, it's an honor to introduce Wagga. Kevin, aka Wagga, was a former leader of the Gators, a gang from the Jane and Finch Woolner area. He was an NBC, a newborn Crips out of Rexdale, Jamestown. Wagga curved the C in Avery, NBC, and armed 2 weeks before Jane and Finch and Woolner boys
not Jane and Finch, sorry. Not Finch, not Jane and Finch.
Finch, yeah, Woolner, right? He made the, and like I said, I mean, let me introduce Wagga in terms of how I know Wagga. So I'll tell you how I do Wagga, but I'll tell you how real he is. I met this young man when we first started school, and he was probably 15 years old, starting high school. And he was just a skinny young kid that, you know, didn't even know how to fight. And, you know, I remember the first time he came to me and a few friends that were in the area that time, and, you know, from the area that time, and he said, hey, you know, these kids are, and I said, yo, you can't hang with us if you can't fight. And Wagga changed, and he, you know, a couple months later, Wagga was an extreme fighter, you know. I remember when we brought him to, he's the first one to ever go to jail as a young offender for 5 months. I remember we driving him to the jail that we drove him to, that he had to spend his 5 months. So his journey in terms of where he was coming from as a young individual was coming from very young, very young. But again, you know, he left from Rexdale and he went to Woolner, and, you know, he went out there and he, you know, Wagga just knows what he is. Wagga was always a leader. He was always a strong individual, strong-minded, very spiritual person, a very grounded person, but he had a determination in him to be something. I think, him gravitating to and going to Wilner, leaving the era that he knew and grew and where he was raised and where he was known well, and going to a new area is, and developing that strong leadership that he did there, and establishing. And I'm not promoting any, I'm not promoting any gangs or anything like that, but I'm just promoting the skills that he had in terms of being a leader and being able to establish what he established there, and understanding after a while when you realize that that wasn't the right choice, that wasn't the right decision that he made in life, and after spending some time in jail and looking back at his life and how he impacted his kids. He was a gentleman that always took care of his kids. He was always there for his children. And looking back at who he was and what he contributed to society in a negative aspect, and realize that his decisions, his choices, and not only impacted those that was around him, but was impacting others that was in the city of Toronto. And he made a conscious decision of changing his life and coming on this platform to speak, and putting himself out there as the leader of the Gators, and and speaking to a rival gang member that they had like difficulties in the past, and being able to come on this platform and speak as a gentleman and do this as a man, and I would consider that to be a man. It's my honor to be able to speak on behalf of somebody like that. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to continue this process.
All right, thank you. We're gonna play a little clip from.
I reap what I sow. I idolize the gun life. I live the gun life. I get locked up. My son's growing up in the neighborhood. People are telling him stories of what his father did this and his father did that. So my son knew Wagga as his father. My son walked in my footsteps that I left. And because he walked in those footsteps at 19, my son lost his life. Got shot 17 times in a hotel room. And that hit me hard. Super.
So I'm not going to play out the whole thing. We will be back in 2 weeks where we can talk and really get in depth with some of the pieces in Wagga's story, but I just wanted to play that as an introduction. So I want to once again thank both Marcel and Wagga for being here, and for really taking the time out to speak to the youth and the city of Toronto. And we're going to move on now to the question section. So section 1, Mikey, you got this. And this is for both Wagga and Marcel. Wagga, do you want to say hi real quick so people see you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay.
All right. How are you doing, Kevin? How you doing, Marcel?
Yes, I'm okay.
All right.
Unmute Marcel.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've never met you, but I hope to meet you soon. First of all, as a community leader, someone that's been in the community for many, many years, I was one of the case managers at the formerly Breaking the Cycle program. So I'm well entrenched in understanding of what is happening in our city. This is a platform that has never been established before. This is the first time this has been done in Toronto, in terms of bringing up some rival gang members that are formerly no longer gang members, but participated in, and I would say participated in some of the uncertainties that is happening right now in the city, right? One of the things I want to commend both you guys, that you are the first to actually take the floor and actually do this. You know what I mean? It takes a big person, it takes a big individual, it takes a person with understanding, a person with the willingness to make a difference to actually do something like this. And I want to commend both of you guys for that effort, right? This is a clean space, more than a clean space, but a safe space. So we want to let you guys know that you guys are both safe to express how you feel. And we want to make it as real as possible. We want to make sure that you guys are speaking from the heart. I'm a person that speaks from the heart. Zia speaks from the heart. Natasha, I know, definitely is a heart speaker. And when we speak from the heart. Okay, you know what I mean? And I want this to be as real as possible. All right, so we're going to have this conversation. So let's do this and let's talk, okay? All right, so I'm going to pose the first question to Wagga, and then the same question I'm going to pose to you also, Marcel, okay? We can have a discussion. Let's talk. Let's talk about this, okay? I'm coming from a place of experience, so let's speak, all right? So tell me about yourself and why you felt it is important to be here, Wagga. That's the first question I'm going to ask you.
Well, I'm trying to reach a young generation to make them know my story, like why I did what I did or why I became who I became, and the reasons why I did the things I did and why they should not, or even why they should think real good before they do what they do. Because sometimes at a young age, I wasn't thinking, I was just reacting.
Marcel, what about you? Tell me about yourself and why you felt it's important to be here.
So, as you know, my name is Marcel Wilson. What happened was, so I'm the president and founder of the One by One movement, and we've been working with active gang members and former gang members and former mobsters, former bikers, former Al-Qaeda, former white supremacists for some time now. And I brought together a collective of these people so that we could kind of lead by example that change is possible. Why this is important to me, one of the, there's a short list as to groups out there that are putting in real work. So
when you say put in real work, what are you speaking of?
I mean, boots on the ground, actually in community, face to face with young people that are going through these struggles.
Right.
So I seen Zia and think twice. Well, I can speak for Zia. I seen Zia as one of those people who are putting in work.
Yeah.
So we connected along the way, and she let me know about an idea of that she knew Wagga, and that she wanted to do something like this to kind of lead by example and show you can change, and people from opposing sides can come together and have a real discussion. So I agreed to it, and I'm happy I'm here, and hopefully this is the start of making a real difference.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think this, because it's the first of its kind, I think a platform like this needs to continue. So I agree with that. All right, so I'm going to the next question, right? Wagga, I'm going to start with you first. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rexdale. Originally from the town. Lagatha, stop it. Sorry, that's my dogs. I'm originally from the town, Rexdale. Moved from there, went to Jane and Woolner, lived at my grandmother's because I kept getting into trouble at a young age. In and out of young offender homes, running away. And just, that's it. That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up, those two areas.
Right. Marcel, where did you grow up?
So I'm from a place called Swansea Mews. It's Toronto community housing, just at the foot of Parkdale. And I was homeless by 13, and then made Parkdale my home, and certain downtown strips and areas where I started hanging out later.
So when you're 13, you're couch surfing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and on road, sleeping on the road too. You know, like
Which many of the youths are doing today. Many of the youths today that are involved in gangs, that's what they are. They're couch, what we call couch surfing, sleeping at a friend's house, sleeping here and there. You know what I mean? Trying to find that connection, right? Okay, so I understand that, and I know that Wagga was a very important person within the Gators gang that operated out of Wilner. Wagga, how and when did you start the Gators? Because I think one time there was a picture of you with even a live gator too. You had that live gator as.
Yeah, I've had alligators all my life, But the alligator was a symbol of what we carried around, what we had our symbol. But the thing is, with Gators was a younger generation to me. By the time I came to Woolner, they were a young group of youth. Gators were like as young as NBCs. And they themselves wanted to join and wanted to become Crips. And I told them they should just be themselves, be original. Like, you're not from Rexdale. And they came up with a name, but they had the alley in front of it because they always hanged out by an alley. And I didn't like the alley part, so I just told them use Gator, right? So in that sense, I was more like an elder to them that they looked up to. You know what I mean? And it just formed. It just created a bond. And then some of them started doing what I was doing, started hustling and started hanging. So we started renting houses and living together. And it became more and more and more. And it started with like 10, then it became 20. Till the next minute we were like 101 Gators. So we had to expand, move from Woolner, go straight down like to Runnymede. We just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It just completely grew. Kids just wanted to flock. I didn't understand it, but at the time we all just hanged out and had fun.
Yo, you're muted. Unmute. Yeah.
And the thing why this question is so important too is because a lot of times, and I know a lot of the attendants, the people that are attending today, want to always ask that question. Like, why do young people join gangs? What is the reasons why young people join gangs? So I'm going to ask you this question. Why did you think your fraction became so big? What was it about the Gators that let that transpire?
I believe it was like the camaraderie of the brotherhood. Like we were all there for each other. If somebody got kicked out of their house, we band together and rented a place and had a house that we could go to. So at young age, I'm in my young 20s, they're in their late teens, we had a house to live in. So which kid's gonna listen to their parents when he knew he had a friend that had a house? I mean, they started to idolize the streets. Me, myself, when I was younger, I idolized my older uncle and their friends, right? And you flock to that at a young age, and that's what ended up happening. Then at a young age, they're drinking. It's cool to hang out. And then other friends look at them and they say, holy crow, so-and-so was a nobody yesterday. Oh, he's a Gator today, he's popular. Next person becomes a Gator after that.
And it's funny, and I'll address it after, but it's funny that, you know, when society seems to think that there's one particular reason why a person joins a gang, when it's, you know, it's when they look at it in such a micro level and not looking at a macro level, and looking at that there's so much different elements and factors why people join gangs. I think it's important for us to address that. There's different reasons why. It's not just a micro level where it's just one particular reason. Not because you don't have a father doesn't mean that that's the reason why you join gangs. There's much different reasons for that. But that's a different conversation. I think we can hold that on a different platform. So you can do something about that. We can have another discussion about that. Marcel, you now. So from my understanding, you were a part or a leader of the Looney Tunes. I'm not sure. Can you clarify your position in terms of who you were to the Looney Tunes? and how and when, if you did start the Looney Tunes, when was that?
So the Looney Tunes itself was a big brother gang to the gang that I actually joined. So the founding member were two brothers. I'm not going to mention their name because I don't know if
You don't have to.
had
You
to
don't
be.
have to.
But due to my passion for violence, I rose pretty quick amongst their ranks and became one of the. I believe there was about 8 leaders for the Looney Tunes at that time. So we broke off and made a subsection called the Tiny Toons. I guess it would be similar to how Wagga was explaining NBC or Gators as a subsect. So I was one of the leaders, or comfortably could say the leader of the Tiny Toons set. And how that came about was at the time in Toronto, there was a big problem. So this is early 90s, I'd say like 94. There was a big issue with skinheads and this downtown. And at the time I was homeless, so they were pretty prevalent downtown. And a lot of youth from different hoods. So Tiny Toons or Looney Tunes weren't based in one area. We had many hoods across the city. So a lot of young people used to congregate down at Young and Dundas for like rap battles and whatever. Just a lot of lost youth looking for a place to kind of hang out. And because of the influence of the Looney Tune guys that were originally from Scarborough, it kind of just rolled out from there. And people who were about it and had that propensity for violence kind of rose to the ranks really quick. So really, that's how I got started.
I remember those eras in the 90s, and when the Gators were started, and when the Looney Tunes were started. I remember those eras well. I think that was the first time we started to hear fractions. Before then, it used to be a community-based thing. Like when the city started, the first B-boys were, they're in their 50s right now, turning 50s, and their kids are the ones that's out there in their 20s now and that's like Wagga said, and I think it's very important to understand this. Like many of the individuals that are people within the city of Toronto that are foundation within the city of Toronto, their kids now are the ones that are shooters. Their kids now are the ones that are putting in work for the community. The same community that we used to party at, you know what I mean? And that's the funny thing about it, is that those communities, and I tell you something, back in the days when, in the 80s and the early 90s, when we used to party, and I remember that's the first time that hip hop and b-boy, like we're talking about the first generation of funk music, hip hop, not even R&B, hip hop within the city, the first break dancing era. This is the generation that we're talking about right now. So we're talking about the Looney Tunes and we're talking about the Gators. This is the generation that we're speaking of, that was a part of that era, in terms of developing what the city is, what it is today. And I'm glad that you guys said this first, that the influence that from the decision you made back then is a part of the problem today. You know what I mean? And truly to understand that is understanding, the foundation of really where Toronto is coming from. A lot of service providers and people that are tapping into this and trying to understand, and even politicians that are tapping into this and trying to understand, why is the city like this? But they do not have the foundation of understanding of where the city is coming from. You know what I mean? This platform is also setting that understanding. And I think, as we continue to discuss and we continue to talk, we will address a lot of matters and a lot of issues and a lot of, address a lot of things that is really, really taking place. And I think, and again, I just have to thank Zia for making such a platform that is so real that we can have these type of discussions that has never been seen before. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? In our city. And I want to make sure that I mention that it's in our city of Toronto, right? All right. So I'm going to go on to the next question. What does the name Gators represent? That's to Wagga, for sure.
The name Gators represent, tell you the honest to God truth, I don't know why they picked or why they liked it. They used to hang out at an alley. Then they said alligators. I told them drop it and let's just say Gators. And then once we said Gators, we started looking and we kept seeing that Florida Gator uniform with the Florida Gator flexing that big gator. So we took that and was wearing that all the time. And then bam, we started buying alligators. Every member would have an alligator in their house or grow one. See how long and how big you could get it grown.
Wow. Is that why you like to raise dogs now?
I've always had dogs from I'm young.
I know.
I've always had dogs, but I've had a gator from a baby and grown it to 6 feet.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Marcel, what did the name Looney Tune, Tiny Toon stand for?
So from what I recall, from what I remember, you know, there was a movie. You know, the American gang culture was extremely prevalent in Toronto, especially in the 80s when rap music came into the scene. Somebody
I'm hearing
when rap music came into the scene, you know, it really changed the culture of Toronto. So in that movie, there was a gang of a mixed gang of different cultures and whatnot. So I'm pretty sure that that's where the original Looney Tunes name came from. The Tiny Toons, obviously, there was a cartoon that came off of off TV and ended up our name. So really there was no rhyme or reason. It was a chosen name and we went with it because Looney Tunes were our big bros.
I like that you just said that, how the music, the hip hop influenced the culture of Toronto. I think that's also another a conversation there that is important to address too. Thank you.
Okay, Mikey, we're gonna jump forward, so hold on to your next questions. We're gonna jump to Tasha for the sake of time. Tash.
Okay. All right, Wagga and Marcel, respect again for joining us today in this session. It's greatly appreciated. So my first question is just basically to talk about the gangs now versus back then. So this is to both Marcel and Wagga. I just want to know, like, what is the difference between gang violence now and back in your time?
Okay, before you guys answer that, we're gonna play a video. Oh shit.
I believe the difference in the streets now is the level of respect. Even though back then you had your enemy, you never liked them, there's a certain respect to them because you're like, yeah, I'm a shatter, he's a shatter. Or there was a certain respect of yourself as, okay, if I'm gonna go for somebody, I'm going for who I'm warring with. I'm looking for my enemies. I'm looking for somebody I know. Where nowadays, the young youth that are involved in the streets, there's no respect. It's literally, they're on what I was on, trying to make a name for themselves by 1,000%. So it's, they're in war with a certain neighborhood. They don't look to see if they're going for an enemy. The whole neighborhood's their enemy, whether it's the church-going kid or like what happened, a mother sitting in the car trying to get a drop home. Somebody drives by. When me and my friends were in our time, like either us in the lifestyle that are going against other people in the lifestyle, we're going at each other, not innocent people.
All right, so right now I want to hear from Marcel and Wagga about just expand on that. So Marcel, what are your thoughts on the difference between the gang now and back then?
That's a topic that has a lot of layers, but I'd say one of the main things, we do a lot of data collection on the risk factors. And I would say for me, even just based on experience, social media would probably play the main component. You know, back in mine and Wagga's day, it was probably, you know, it was more pagers and payphones. So if you wanted to beef, if you got into beef with another set, you literally had to be face to face. You bumped into them at a club or a block, or, you know, you physically had to be person to person to even get a beef really going. Where now, you know, people can just say whatever online, and you know, shots are popping off. And then to speak on the point that was made in the video, you know, we were a very structured organization. I wasn't a street level guy for very long. I went on to do more organized things and work with organized groups.
Hold on, pause right there. So how long were you in the street gang life for?
I'd say about 5 years on like the street level stuff, where I was trapping and chopping in those ways. And then again, other larger organizations noticed my acumen for violence and hustling, and I kind of went on to move with more organized groups. But yeah, social media, and then a lot of things. One thing that's never touched on really is the use of designer drugs that we didn't really mess with back then.
I believe the difference.
Sorry.
And then the code, you know, the code. We had a code, a structure, a charter that we're not really seeing these days.
Okay, thank you. Wags.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you expand on what you were saying in the video?
My thing is, nowadays youths and back then youths is totally different. We had older men that made sure we do what we're supposed to do when it needs to be done. There was rules and orders set. There was, like, where I grew up, and the foundation that formed me was a more Jamaican yada yada. My uncles them were strict, so you couldn't like go and do something stupid and think that that's badness and come back and want to talk about it, because you'll get disciplined. So as youths, we never did nothing stupid. If we're beefing with somebody, we went and got who we're beefing with, right? Nowadays youths, they just say, oh, we're beefing with this area, and they just beef with the area. You don't even live in the area. You go visit somebody and then you get turned over, right? So that's what's going on. The level of respect, that's what I talk about. Because they don't respect their OGs, so there's no code. Most of these neighborhoods that are going through their torments right now, all their OGs either left or got killed or locked up, because the younger generations either was beefing with them, warring with them. So now, or the cops locked them up. So now the kids growing up with no rules or no order, they don't know how to do this thing. So they just jump into it. And like what my man said, drugs now. But that also causes the order. Back then, if you messed around in the streets and one of the OGs seen that you were taking drugs, you get disciplined. Now it's cool for them to take drugs. So they take drugs and do what they do.
Right. Question real quick. What got you into the gangster life? Like, what was it that brought you to that life? Wagga.
Me, it started like, I could tell you, school. I could tell you going through school. I never liked school. I had a hard time. I was in special ed from probably young to high school. And every teacher told me, like, you'll never amount to nothing. But every school I went to, I was the leader. I controlled everybody. So I knew I could use my head on people. I knew I can control people from when I was young. I knew I could talk my way out of things from when I was young. So I never cared about school. By the time I turned 12, I stopped going to school. Act like I was going to school, but I hanged out and start watching what the older guys do and watched and learn. I idolized the lifestyle after a while. By the time I turned 15 and I went inside the first time, and I realized that jail's a joke, especially for young offender, and certain jails they were putting me in, there was girls there too. I wasn't even scared of jail as a young offender. So I went straight into it when I came home. And I had friends that they sat me down and tried to talk to me all the time. And I wouldn't listen to nobody.
Okay.
That's what got me into it.
Thank you. Marcel.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that school played a bit of a role. But for me, and this is just some real shit, in my area, you know, when I grown up, I was a good kid. You know, none of us are born gangster, but we're creative. And in my neighborhood, there was a culture of violence that already existed long before my time, you know, from the forefathers before me. And, you know, I was a good kid. I was articulate, and I got bullied, you know. So I always say that I was a victim long before I was a gangster. You know, I had no interest in violence or gang culture or any of that stuff. I didn't know about it. But after years of kind of getting victimized and bullied and, you know, into fights and whatever, I decided that I was no longer going to be a victim, and I was going to become the guy waiting in the alley. So I said, if I was going to be the guy waiting in the alley, I'm going to be the best at it. And then I ended, you know, there was like family problems at home. So, you know, I lived in metro housing. At the time, poverty was a serious issue. I wanted more for myself. I wanted more for my family. You know, being an intelligent guy who got good grades in school, you're labeled as a square, as a lame, as a punk. You know, so that culture helped steer me towards what was cool. You know, like everybody else, I wanted to get laid. I wanted to get paid. So, you know, and then I ended up homeless, and I had OGs from different areas and different sets kind of lead me and guide me. And I mastered the craft.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask you guys about right now, right now in the streets, on site, innocent people getting killed. So people that's, you know, postal code instead of being involved. Yeah, like what are your thoughts on site? The lack of regard for life, calling each other demons, smoking on dead packs, pissing on graves. What are your thoughts on that? Wagga.
I believe the new generation, they just lost. I believe all the stuff they're doing, they're drinking, smoking. When I talk to them, it doesn't even make sense. Some of them, they don't even know what they're beefing over. So generation is lost.
Okay. Marcel.
Yeah. I don't know, when I'm talking, the camera's not coming towards me, but anyway, the on-site stuff, I think homeboy touched on it a little bit, where there was a certain respect amongst gangsters. Like you respected your enemy to a degree, you know. So if somebody got hit or they lost a member, you know, sometimes there'd be a cooling off period, you know, or there would be a certain level of respect for that dead person, because there was a sort of, I know this is fucked up for some people to hear, but there was an honor system amongst gangsters that obviously doesn't exist now. You know, in my time, if you walked onto a range or you walked into your hood after shooting a child, like he touched on, there was a internal disciplining that happened. So a lot of these variables, and the real reason, the main reason, is because people like myself and Wagga, we left the people in check. It's our generation that didn't pass the mantle down properly to the next. So they didn't learn the history, they didn't learn the code. They had to make up their own system. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of what we're seeing now.
Okay. All right. So yesterday, Wagga, me and you had a conversation, and we were talking about how the streets came to this. So why you think the streets came to this? We touch on some of those things right now, but I want you to touch on it again in depth because what you said was so real.
In my eyes, it came a time where it's like the government, the people, the police, they went after the neighborhoods and took away all the elders. They took away all the even if they were the elders, the big men, and they're out there doing what they're doing, they kind of set an order. It happened probably like 2000, 2001. Around them times, every neighborhood got swept, people got taken away. So they have a bunch of young kids growing in the streets with nobody to put them in check. And the generation that's going to follow after them, look at them as their OGs. So there's still no rules and no laws. And you go a couple years later, they make their own rules, they make their own laws, and that's when all the drinking, the lean, and all this different stuff happen in Toronto. They start following a more American ideal of street stuff. And this is where we're at today.
Okay. You said something yesterday. You said some of the youths, they get high and do shit, and then when they're not high, when they sober up, they're ashamed.
They're ashamed of themselves. They have to stay on that plane. They have to stay right there. They got to stay high because they're ashamed of what they did. And then if they don't stay high, they're not cooler, they're not tough.
And I find that inside too. I find that people can't do time sober anymore, right? So it's inside and out.
Sure.
That is true.
I find that also inside is a lot of young youths. Like it's different inside. It's like the streets is inside.
Yes, I seen a lot of the young youths when I was inside finishing my last pen bid myself, and sit down and talk to a lot of them.
That leads me to my next question. How much pen time did you guys do? So how much pen time did you do, Marcel? You're on mute.
Yeah, I didn't do anything. Zero. Good lawyer.
Pen time? Okay, so you did jail time.
Yeah, not even really.
Sorry, there's a huge echo, and people are.
I think it's coming from one of those. Yes.
So for those who can mute, it would be best if we mute.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I still hear it. But yeah. So
you're on mute. You're on mute, Marcel.
hello.
Yep.
Yeah. So the mentors I had kind of taught me a philosophy. People in my group who I grew up with 35 years plus. There's actually some of them here now that have done time with Wagga. But they taught me about paying lawyers. So from a smart age, I have a lot of charges and did some dead time, but no pen time. I was in a
Okay, cool. And how much time did you do, Wags? You have to unmute yourself though.
Okay. I just turned 48. I've been doing time since I'm 13. My last pen sentence is 10 years. Before that, my other sentence was 5 years. Before that, my next sentence to the pen was 3 years. And before the pen, I've done a lot of 2-year dead times, 1-year dead times, and a bunch of young offender time.
I noticed with you in the pen, me being in the Bay, Workworth, Fenbrook, the unit back in the day, I noticed that you went anywhere. You weren't like subject to one prison where your neighborhood came from.
It's because of the way I carried myself. I carried myself with a level of respect. I seem to like don't disrespect people unless they disrespect me. And I like to go places and be known. When I call myself an OG, I never called myself OG for an original gangster. I called myself an OG for Ontario's gangster. So I'll go anywhere and do whatever I wanted to do when I wanted to do it.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're gonna ask the audience some questions now. So let's take it to the message board before we move on to the next part, because the next part is deep. Before we go to that, is there any questions? Message board? Do we have any questions or comments? You guys might be on mute, so just check that.
Sorry. Based on these differences that exist and the escalation that has occurred due to these differences, what are suggestions to mitigate the violence?
We actually have a section that we're going to talk about that. So let's hold on to those questions. That's going to come in a minute. So hold on to that. Any other questions or comments? And I'm really looking for questions from people in the streets too.
I see a question here. Do you guys believe that there are still older men influencing these young kids? How do we reach these irresponsible elders?
Say it again.
Do you guys believe that there are still older men still influencing these kids? How do we reach these irresponsible elders?
These kids are influencing themselves, but you guys can answer that.
At this point in time, I don't believe there's no more elders running any neighborhood, any block, anywhere in any city anymore. The young kids are doing what they want to do. The elder men, them all left because they don't want the problems. When you're older, if you're still doing what you're doing, you want to safely make your money without problems. So it has nothing to do with elder men. It has to do with what the kids are doing because they choose to do it.
Marcel.
Yeah, I would have to agree that there are not many elders, and a lot of the ones that I know that are still out there on the road. There was like a culture of like guys our age, 1 murder, 2 prison, and 3, many of them 3 buckets. And for those who don't know what a bucket is, you know, that's a crackhead or a drug user. So some of those guys who were considered OG, triple OG, or whatever, you know, buying shit or buying drugs from the youngsters. So how is an OG who used to run a certain area going to be able to tell a youngster who's buying dope off them, you know, don't do this or don't do that? So it's very rare and very far and few in between. But the ones that are there, the ones that, you know, the few that may still be out there doing something, what I'd say to them, or what I would think, is that they haven't dealt with their internal self. You know, there's issues and traumas and mental health things that they haven't dealt with, which keeps them, you know, messed up in the trap and keeps this ugly cycle continuing.
Thank you.
There's another question. Do you want another question?
Yep.
All right. So what value do Wagga and Marcel see if each of us in here made a commitment to mentor 1 street involved youth each? So what value do you guys see if each of us make a commitment to mentor 1 street involved youth?
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, it would make the world a difference, really. You know, a lot of what these, especially if you catch them early, you know, a lot of these kids, for the same reasons I joined, for the same reasons he joined, you know, there was misguidance there. And similar to his story, I had people in my family, you know, more of the Canadian Italian persuasion. I'm Italian and Canadian and Jamaican. So I was watching them, and even one of my uncles, if they had turned to me and said, "Hey, you know, this isn't for you," especially because of the respect level I had for him, I probably would have, you know, taken that path. And then at the same time, like again, bullying, I have to stress on the bullying piece. I was on a right path, you know. So if you do mentor a child, one of the biggest issues is dealing with the bullying. But it would make a world of a difference.
Hear that. All right.
You have time for another one?
Yep, one more.
All right. Did or in this present time, do you think parents play a role in what happens with the youth's lives?
Pause on that. We're going to come back to that because we have a section on that too. So we'll come back to that.
All right. And then there's just a lot of comments just showing appreciation for the speakers that are on here for taking the time out to just have real talk. You know, a lot of people are not willing to do that. So there's just a lot of comments saluting them for coming on here and doing this.
Very good. All right. So before we get to the next question about the mind, I want to ask you, I'm going to go back and ask you guys a question about yourself. So you guys said did you guys say where Looney Tunes and Tiny Toons rep and Gators? You guys talked about that already?
A little bit.
Okay. Did both of you have a personal beef with each other? Or was it just amongst your gangs?
Wagga, you want to take that one then?
To me, the way I look at it, I don't think it was even any personal beef. Like I said, Gators, to me, Gators, I was around when they're doing what I was doing, and they were a younger generation. So as my influence to them, when they got into what they were getting to, when they started going downtown, I would just let them know that there's no way that they can make themselves or what they're repping look any which way. They got to deal with it straight, or it has to be just handled. I was never around, so I really, no, me and him, no, I don't think we ever had serious beef eye to eye. It was just whatever happened with the Gators, and the Tiny Toons. Anytime they would buck up at whatever club, or some of them, say 4 or 5 of them would go to a club, they'd get jumped, or something would happen downtown, and then the rest of them would all have to retaliate.
Okay. And you want to add to that, Marcel?
Yeah, I think he's right. You know, we met once or twice while this beef was going on. You know, and I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but yeah, it was more just a on-site kind of thing. And from my memory, you know, we controlled a couple of clubs downtown, and one of the clubs we controlled was Party Center. And there was a lot of, like, you know, different crews that would come there, break dancing and rapping, and rap battling was a big thing. So, you know, as I said, a lot of different hoods would come down to the downtown core, and once we claimed it, you know, anyone who came was outside the government. So I think it kind of, you know, bounced back and forth from there.
When I look at the city of Toronto right now and the gangs right now, I see that even though there's different politics, I do see that it kind of traces back to your guys' time and a little bit before you with the certain 1-2 crews that came over, right? But what I want to know is what areas was Looney Tunes and Tiny Toons from? Like what area, what neighborhoods were they?
Okay, so we controlled many of them. right? So again, the Looney Tunes were based in
Sorry,
Scarborough,
sorry,
South Thornton Park, and Chester Lee, and them.
Hold on, Marcel. What, Jackie?
sorry not to interrupt you, Marcel. I'm not sure if you have another device open or close to you, or if you can maybe level out your audio. Every time you speak, it echoes, so we're not getting to hear what you have to say clearly.
Yeah, I don't think it's my mic.
I don't know. We're not hearing you.
I think it's
might
the
be
host mic.
okay. So if whoever's speaking and whoever's not speaking, we might have to just mute so that the echo is not as feedback.
Tell me if you hear it now.
No.
I don't hear it when you speak, Zia, but like I hear it when others speak and you're not. So it's coming back as feedback for others as well. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Marcel, you can go ahead.
No problem. So yeah, we were more of an organization than a hood-based gang. But for my set, we had a very strong presence in Parkdale. We owned downtown to a certain degree, which was right like Young Strip, and then obviously Regent Park was over there. And we had, we're allied with a lot of the downtown groups, but we had a much larger set. Tiny Toons was part of a bigger affiliation called the Black Cloud, and we had Ardwick, which was Trife Kids. We had a few spots up in Finch, north and south. Pelham Park, Swansea Muse. A lot of hoods, man. We weren't a hood-based organization. We were an organization. We took hoods.
All right, thank you. And Wags, where was Gators from, and who were their allies?
Gators was straight from Jane and Woolner. Jane and Woolner is where it all started from at first. The only allies they really had was Rex, because I was from Rex. Everybody knows me from Rex. I'm Doomstown all day, every day. So they knew that they had to look up and respect every man from Rex and never ever getting any problems with anybody from Rex. That was one thing that was always made clear with them. But as it grew, it started at Jane and Woolner, went straight all the way down to like Jane Station, probably from Eglinton. Jane and Eglinton go all the way down to where Eglinton Station is probably at one point. Down to even Black Creek, you could have called one of the areas we colonized after. But like I said, it was for me to do what I do and maneuver in a way I would maneuver in all those areas at those times.
All right, thank you. Okay, now I'm gonna play a clip. This is about the mind. Okay, this is a piece of the documentary again that Wagga speaks on, and then I want to have a conversation with you guys after we play this.
Sorry, Zig. I just want to say, if anybody wants to help support with the documentary, you can donate at think2.org. That's our website, www.think2.org. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right. Oh.
Growing up, I was always taught about God. My grandparents are very spiritual people, but I had a side of me where I'm thinking evil, I'm doing evil. So yes, at night or before I leave my house, or at night I'll pray, God, this, that, can you forgive me for what I've done? But yet still I was quick and ready to like go out there and hustle and sell drugs, which I'm poisoning people. Or somebody did me wrong, I'll pick up my weapon and go fire it at a bunch of people. You're thinking evil. When you're thinking evil, your thoughts, you're gonna do evil. What you think, it manifests. And you create that evil that you're thinking. You do that evil. To you, you're not doing evil. to me, I was like, I'm doing what I have to do, or these guys are in the lifestyle and I'm in the lifestyle, so what happens, happens. But really, it's the way you're thinking. You think evil, you have a demon in you, you have a demon beside you, you have a demon walking with you, and you're feeding that demon, you're feeding that negative energy, right? And the more you feed it, it's more you're not thinking correctly. You think you're thinking correctly because it's in the lifestyle that you're living. I have all these evil thoughts in me, so it's like when you're young watching the cartoon, the devil pops up here and the angel pops up here, and then the angel saying no, 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 and then the devil runs over and beats him up in the head. Once you're thinking evil, evil always wins until you change the way you think.
Wagga, can you speak to that? I thought that was so big.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Just the way me talking about that was me showing like the way I thought growing up, the way I was thinking while I was doing what I was doing, when I was thinking to make this name in that lifestyle, because I idolized it. I really wanted to be like 17 or 18, the baddest bad man there is, walk anywhere and tell people, yo, I'm Wagga. Like, so if I think it and I'm feeling it and I want to live it, as soon as you diss me and I have it, you're getting it, or I'm going to give it to you. It's the way I was thinking at that time. And I never changed the way I was thinking. I grew up from a child thinking that way to a young man thinking that way, until one day I just had to sit down and really start thinking about the way I'm thinking. And I changed the way I'm thinking. And even when an accident happened or something happened tragic, because I changed the way I think, I don't think to handle it in that situation the way I would have handled it way back then.
Sorry, you said something that stuck out to me. You said the way you're thinking and the evil way you're thinking, it's like you have a demon with you. And I find that today, with all the evil that's going on out here, one of the words that these youths say, they call each other demons or demon time, right?
Because they know what they're doing. It's reality. Like when I sit down and talk to you and I'm saying we got to try to reach the kids before they make that decision. Yeah. Once they make that decision and they wake up, they know what they're doing. And then they know, they accept it. You're a demon. You're going to only want to keep doing what you're doing. You're going to want to keep living that way.
Marcel, do you want to add anything to the mind? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, we sort of take a different approach and a view to the aggression part of why I did what I do and why we think people do what they're doing now. It's more rooted in science, dealing with trauma and all this, violence in the home, maybe for some unstable households, a culture of violence where the messaging is constantly in your brain. And again, social media didn't exist and wasn't as prevalent then, but we were dealing with stuff right in our own neighborhoods that was creating trauma and affecting the prefrontal cortex. There's a lot of studies being done right now, and there's some people doing some great work on that, like Operation Prefrontal Cortex, that address those particular issues. So we tend to think that more has to do with the mentality of, violence being the norm and being okay. It has to do with trauma and damage to the brain. But for me, again, on some real shit, because we've dubbed the term called the internal realization and transformation process. So the biggest factor that we haven't really talked about here is self-accountability. And one of the things I admit to is that even though I became good at violence, I studied it, I trained in it. What I became was a product of my environment and society. So it was a mask, it was a caricature. you know, and it was really a self sort of security, you know. And as I became worse, as I became more violent, I seen the respect that I was getting, the more girls I was getting, the more money I was making, and most importantly, the fear. The fear drove me. You know, I mistaked fear for respect, and there's a real big difference there. So that's my take. You know, violence really affects the mind.
Tasha, Mikey, what do you guys? I want to hear your 2 cents. Before we move on, comments. Are there any comments or questions about this piece right here? Message board.
Finally you got unmuted me, Zia. Wow, I wanted to talk for so long. You guys touched on some good points. I think honestly, Zia, you definitely have to do more of this. I don't think we're able to address and to touch on all the topics that needs to be touched on. I think we need a broader platform to even do this. The information, you guys are just speaking some stuff that really touched me. I've been trying to get on for so long to try to talk, but I just remember that I am not. I'm just a host. I'm not here to be a participant and to talk like Marcel and Wagga. But when we touch on it, we're talking about, you know, I heard some stuff talking about demons and what is influencing youth to become what they are today. And like I said, it's funny that, you know, some of us are thinking on a macro level and not thinking on the micro level. We need to think on the bigger level and understand that there's different factors and elements that causes a youth to think the way they think. Wagga touched on a thing that he talked about, you know, the demons, you know, that self-talk, you know what I mean? There's the angel on one shoulder and then the demon and the devil on the other shoulder is talking to them, you know, and Marcel talked about, you know, going into, you know, youths that are impacted, you know, by trauma. I mean, there's so much perspective and there's so much things that youths go through and reasons to why they join a particular gang. And I say, as me as a youth worker, no matter whatever title I hold in whatever organization I work in, I'm always going to be a youth worker. One of the things I've always learned is always to, whenever I'm dealing with a young person, always deal with them as an individual. Look at that person and address that person and look at what that person in particular, what he's going through, and not to label him in a category, because that's what we tend to do, is label people into categories. Well, their parents, they didn't have no fathers. And you have parents that you have kids that grew up to be good and had only a single mother. That doesn't make a difference. You have to look at the different factors. And again, that's a different conversation, right? And we're talking about this gang issue and what's going on in Toronto right now. You know what I mean? The thing is, when we're looking at Toronto, we're looking at what's going on in Toronto. Another thing, a conversation that came up when we're looking at the fact to say, how is the communities now, what is happening? Why are we seeing so many innocent people being shot in the communities? And I think it goes back to the foundation. It goes back to the foundation where in Toronto, when you represent and you rep the set, you rep your community. You're a part of your community. You lived in your community. Gangs started from your community, started from your next door neighbor, the friends that you went to and you didn't have no milk or you didn't have no sugar. You went to their house and got sugar and you got milk. They became your friends. You grew up with friends. And then from that set, you started, when the drugs came involved, you started to represent that set. And that is where the element of where Toronto is coming from to become what it is. Now, when you're seeing these innocent people getting shot, I heard Wagga touch on it, and that was so profound to say that, you know what, though, back in the days, and I've said this before, back in the days when you had a problem with a person, you went to that particular person that you had a problem with and you did what you had to do to that particular person. You didn't go into the area. There's no respect going into the area and shooting an innocent person. There's no respect for that. You know what I'm saying? If you went and you said, oh, I got somebody, you went back to your hood and you told your friends and that, they'll laugh at you and say, yo, get out of here, you're a punk. They're not going to accept that. But because, again, I heard you guys, and I want to go fast because I know Zia's not going to give me the time to kind of speak all I need to speak, and she knows already. So I'm going to go really fast, and it's kind of like, one of the things is like, understand, like, you understand, like, what the youth are doing nowadays are different. The drugs that they're smoking is different. Marcel talked about it's dealing with science. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the drugs that they're smoking right now. They're smoking hydro. Back in the days, you smoked cess. That was going straight from the earth. Now they're smoking hydro. They're doing perks. They're doing mollies. They're drinking liquor. They're doing lean. Understand that. So if you now get drunk off and you're hanging with your friends and you're hanging out and you're chilling out and you're drinking all these things, you're popping all these pills, and of course you're gonna be demonized. And then your friends come to tell you, yo, let's go right out in the ops. What do you think you're gonna do? And then you go right out in the ops. You're right out in the ops. Don't even have sanity of what you're doing. You don't care who you kill. You don't even know who you're killing. You're just going out and do what you're doing. That's what's happening with the mentality of the youth right now. So it's a lot of underlying issues that we need to look at. And again, like I said, I can talk all day, every day. But due to the time, I don't have that time. I hope that Zia will set a platform where we can really have another discussion about this.
What I want to do is bring you on as a guest next time, because you shouldn't be a host. You need to be a guest, and people don't really know who you are. So you know what I mean. So yeah, definitely I'm gonna have you on as a guest, Mikey. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
thank you.
I think there's some different pieces to this. You have to understand trauma is a big piece. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a big piece. But we also have some people that use that as an excuse to do some of the wickedness that they do. So that there's levels to this, and every single person, there's a different, there's not one reason for gun violence. There's not one reason for gang involvement. There's multiple reasons. So we can break that apart at a later date. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about retaliation, grief, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Wagga will be back on again. But we're going to move on to the next question. But before we do that, I want to bring it to the audience. Audience, what questions or comments does the audience have for specifically the mind and some of the pieces that we talked about? So message board. Unmute yourselves.
Okay, so we'll go to a few questions here. Sorry, just give me a sec. Is there parents who indulge? Are you saving the parent questions right now, Zia, or are we can? You're on mute. Sorry.
We're gonna do parents next.
Okay. So there was a question. Wagga, talk about your techniques used to recruit these youth back in the days, and how community educators can use these techniques now. All right, so that's a comment, or that's something that they want to hear a little bit about. It sounds like the resources needed to fix a lot of the issues are beyond charities and donations. How do we get the government to care? That's one question. And do you want to talk about that question first, Zia?
What I would say to that, well, I don't see how you could get the government to care, because the government is the reason for this. I mean, we're in a place of only the strong survival of the fittest, and that doesn't come from young boys coming from a neighborhood. That comes from like a long stem of issues, systemic issues. You know what I mean? Like when you put people in a predicament, you don't have resources, and you're putting them in a place of survival. And this is what happens when you're in survival. Like right now, we're talking about survival. So we're not talking about this for anyone to think, that these people are bad people. These are two kings that are actually talking about their past because they want to make change. But understand that this shit ain't coming from them. Yeah, on a personal level, they both have things that they need to deal with. But on a systemic level, this is coming from far back. And this is coming from the system. And this is coming from the government, to be quite honest. And that's a different topic, and that's a different panel right now. And that's, you know what, I even contemplated on keeping this little panel right here private, because this is really for the streets. This is really on a personal level to reach some of these young people, because our people are dying. So no, I don't really think that the government cares, and I don't think they ever will care, but we as the people can put pressure on them. You know what I'm saying, to do more. I don't think, and another thing we can do is educate those who do care in understanding, because a lot of people don't get it. And it's not just a government and the people. It's not just race against race. It's also economic class, which divides, even in the same race. So there's those pieces, right? And I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, and even in, like, for instance, and I always talk about this, and I'm gonna say it again, the government puts in so much money into policing, and I'm not fighting that, to be real with you. I'm not here to say nothing about that. That's not my place. There's other people that do that, but people go to jail, and then there's no programming. There's no rehabilitation programming that touch on gun violence or gang violence. So what was the point of you putting them in jail? People go in gang involved and they come out gang involved. People go in gang involved, people go in not gang involved, and they come out gang involved. Does that make sense? What rehabilitation programming are you putting in? So what change do you really want? And then I have to really blame the community, because the community is not putting a demand on that. Everybody's fighting for everything else, but nobody's fighting for the issues that's going on inside, right? And when you have excessive lockdowns and you have people locked up for how much amount of time, you don't think they're going to come up with mental health issues? You don't think you're turning people into animals? And who's that going to affect? It's not a problem when it only affects the hood, right? Because only the strong survive, and survival of the fittest. But what happens now when it affects innocent people that are from different neighborhoods and races? That's when it's a problem, right? So at the end of the day, we have to blame ourselves. I'm not going to look at them and blame them alone. Everyone has part to blame in the issue that we have when it comes to gun violence right now in 2020. Not just them, everybody. Because if you're a man and you didn't look to someone else and say, let me help put into another child's life, because you were busy taking care of your own, and you had the ability to take care of someone else, what happened to a village raising a child? This is what happens. Your child will feel it when you're not looking out for the next person. Do unto others as you want done unto yourself. So yeah, let's move on. Any other questions?
There's a lot of questions regarding the recruitment strategies. A lot of questions are coming in, so people want to hear more about that. From Wagga, a lot of them have specifically are asking Wagga, and then there's general questions around recruitment and how you can use recruitment, like some of the strategies of what we can use today.
I'm gonna touch on that real quick before Wagga touches on that, but I think you guys need to really understand about recruitment. Like, this is not America. You have to understand the difference in the gang culture in Canada. So when you're talking about recruitment, like, listen to what these guys are saying. You're assuming that it's recruitment, number one. Number two, that will be a different panel, but we'll touch on that quickly. But that will be a panel specifically for the social sector and service providers.
Okay, so they want to hear from
Wags. You want to touch on that?
Or Marcel, yeah.
All right. There's, with us, with Gators, or even where I come from, Rex, there's no recruitment. It's either you are a part of the mandem or you're not. There's no recruitment. Like, there was guys that were in the neighborhood that they could call themselves Gators, and they went to school, they went to college, they played basketball, they hanged out with us, they chilled. They did not do the stuff that we did, but they were Gators. They didn't hustle. If they were at a party and it was a fight, they would get involved in fight because they were with us. You understand? We were friends growing up. They grew together. And then other people seeing the camaraderie of it and seeing how they set and how they hang, and how if this person was hungry, that person took care of them, they flocked to it. So nobody ever said jump in, punch in, whatever. If you were serious and you were down, when we got drunk, you burn a G in your arm or you burn a C in your arm. You made the decision. There was guys that hanged with us that they would say they were Gators and they never ever did anything. There's no recruitment. It's not like that. At least where I'm from and with the people that I know and with the way I seen street life where I grew up.
If anything, the older man then would be telling the youth to go to school, to be honest.
Older men used to always try to tell me go to school.
Yeah.
But I was a rebel and I wouldn't listen.
Yeah. When you have a lack of positive male role models, you're going to look to the man them that's on the corner and you're going to say you want to be like them. They're the ones that's buying ice cream for the community. They're the ones that's they're the ones that are playing that man role. So it's not even so much you're being recruited. It's where you want to be. That's where you want to be. But maybe Marcel might have a different view on that, but that's from what I know. So yeah, Marcel.
Yeah. So as I said before, we were kind of more of a structured organization, not really a block organization. So we did have recruitment strategies, and it was pretty simple. The ideology was rooted in money. You want to make money? Join us. We targeted individuals that were obviously at risk and going through certain things. That was one strategy. And we were good at identifying who those youths were. Another way was when we did block takeovers, when we went into hoods and we forced our way in. It was either you were down for the cause or you end up a victim. So we did test the level of your veracity by making you do different things, robbing people, robbing places, bucking on people, whatever it was. We had a different system for the women because the women played a role in our gang. We actually had a separate gang of women called the Animaniacs. And unfortunately for them, a lot of ways they got in was, they had to, was either, they were sexually abused, meaning they had to sleep with X amount of people, or there were those that had to do dirt to get in. So we did have a bit of a system. We did have to test that you were cut out and then at what level you would operate within the gang.
And this is, you're talking about Looney Tunes and Tiny Toons, or this was when you're with the organized gang?
The organized stuff, it was more they picked you. There was no way to come say, yo, I want to be down. You were sort of handpicked. So it was more the street level stuff where there was grooming. Somebody I just seen posted. That's a good term.
Wow. Okay. I guess every area is different. There's a couple people that reached out that are from the Looney Tunes. I hope that they say something, write something on the message board, because a couple people there are contacted me earlier. But yeah. All right. What was the next question?
All right. So there was a comment here. I run the Government of Canada's Anti-Racism Secretariat. I would love to hear what the speakers want to tell the federal government to do to support solutions. And then, so we can go to that.
We're gonna talk about solutions in a minute. So
okay. There's a lot of comments. I can make some comments. Thanks, Zia. Going back to the statement that you made on talking about care, aftercare, very important. Walking in the streets in our community to reach our youth, being real with the youth. And there's another comment. Every forum like this should network and make changes with other like-minded platforms. When we unite with intelligent conversation and put forth solutions, we can better push for legislative change and amendments. Question is, what is our leverage as a community united to make leaders to see that we are serious for change?
Question, sorry, say the question again.
Yeah, please.
What is our leverage as a community unit to make leaders see that we are serious for change?
Marcel, you want to get this?
Sorry, one more time.
What is our leverage as a community united to make leaders see that we are serious for change?
Well, there's a lot of variables to that question too, because one thing we notice, you know, and it's really sad, that it starts with the foundation, right? It starts with the reason for why you're doing what you're doing. Some people start with good intentions, and then their head starts to get twisted up, ego starts to play a role, and their organizations start to take a left turn, you know? And really what happens is that the agencies and the people that are supposed to be helping these people allow that to affect the original goal, right? So you have agencies that are actually causing the division rather than bringing people together. So one by one movement, we're all about bringing people together, right? That's why we have former white supremacists in our group. We have former bikers, former Crips, former ISIS, former Al-Qaeda members, because really it's about unity, and it starts with us. So it starts with the people in the communities making the change within themselves and really being focused on the mission, which is unity. Without that component, all you really are is a talking head asking for money and praise.
Thank you. Any other, Zia, you want to continue on, or you want a few more questions and comments? You're on mute, Z.
We'll take one more.
Okay. Do you believe that interventions within schools would be most effective for youth as opposed to others that are in place? And how do we get resources and funding in order to create these initiatives?
We'll put that in the section where we're talking about solutions.
All right. Any other of the message board members have any questions that I missed or comments? All right, Z, so continue and we'll get those in the next session. Thanks. In the next segment.
All right, so now we're gonna talk about mothers, families, and the role that they play or don't play when it comes to gun or gang involvement, or even the streets. I'm gonna start with Marcel. Marcel, what role do you think mothers, fathers play?
So when it comes to addressing the issue, you know, I see a lot of the comments, and one thing that people have the mistake of thinking is that there's some type of silver bullet in fixing this. Wagga touched on points where there's some you just can't talk to. You know, I seen somebody say, what do you do how do you talk to somebody who just lost a family member, a brother, right? So we've experienced that. We've experienced people who are too hard-headed or too traumatized to even hear our words. So in the solution part of this thing, the mothers play a huge role, because we have some mothers, like, for example, we have mothers who are middle-class, suburban, who never lived in the hood, you know, never lived that kind of life. And somehow their youths end up in gang involvement. Now, that's not something that was prevalent in my time. It happened, but it was rare. So I have mothers in that situation that ask me, where did I go wrong? Where did we go wrong in this? And my answer to them is not like, there's not much you really could have done except for educating yourself a little more on the pulse of the street, right? So we have programs that address, you know, what social media apps are being used, what language is being used, what group affiliations to educate the moms. Now, on the negative side of it, you have mothers and fathers who are complacent and complicit with the behavior. Now, it could be for a multitude of reasons. It could be that in that you're living in TCH, you're poor, you don't have resources, and your one big son is bringing in an income that you didn't have. So she knows about the gun under the bed. She knows about the dope in the closet. And rather than, you know, trying to encourage them to do the right thing, she's trying to survive. So there may be a missing father in that home, and that big son is now playing the role of father and provider. Right? So there's two sides of it. You know, mothers and family plays a huge role in the direction a youth will go, but it's not a guarantee that your kid's not going to end up down a bad path. You know, there's external factors that play a role, like brother was talking about schools. You know, once your child leaves the home, you don't really have control over their behavior and how they act, right? So how you get to the person who lost a friend or a family, my friend who asked that question, is the moms. You deal with the families, and you deal with their trauma, and then we wrap around that one particular youth, whether they want it or not, whether they like it or not, and you kill them with love. That's my answer.
Okay, and now I'm gonna play a video from the documentary, and this is like I said, this forum was put together for people that are in the street life, not necessarily service providers. So this is a message to some of the moms who have sons in the street life, and they know what's going on, right? So, and I want your comments and questions after this.
Parents got to keep talking and praying to their children, or praying for their children. They got to keep communicating with their children, because after a while, my parents never communicated with me. No. After a while, when they started seeing as a young man that I'm making money, my parents were more or less not my father. My father was strict in school. I couldn't go to my father's house and count on all kind of money, and then he see it and feel like, oh yeah, good son. No. I kept that away from my father. But my mother, she would need money. So me being able to give her $1,000, $2,000, pay her mortgage, it kind of fueled my I'm doing something good. So maybe as a parent, sometimes you gotta not turn a blind eye, but if the son or daughter is in that type of lifestyle, you gotta let them know that you do not agree. Like, if they say, oh mom, you need this and want to give you the money, you gotta say no. You take that and go. Like, I don't want none of your dirty money. I don't want none of your, like, look what you're doing to yourself. Like, there's a lot of things that can fuel or even help push it along. And some parents, like, they're right there behind it, knowing their children are doing badness and only want to cry when they're locked up or when they get shot and killed. So you got to make change. Change starts within. And I guess if a lot of parents be more hands-on, they could help change.
So before Kevin touches on this clip, I want to explain that this is coming from someone who's in it, right? This is someone coming from somebody that was involved in this the topic that we're talking about, giving his mom money and what shaped his mind, and as a parent, and I think also right now with a lot of the young youth, a lot of the young youth that are in trouble and in the life, a lot of them are coming from my generation, Wagga's generation, my generation, and a little bit younger. So I think this message is more for the people that are from where we're from. You know what I mean? Like, as a parent, when we take, and the thing is that, yeah, poverty plays a really big part, because when you're a parent, when you don't have anything, and you know, you're a single parent, it's hard, and when your child comes with that money, you know, that can help you with a bill, but the bill that it helps you with will not help you with the bills that will incur after. because in a sense, it's like digging a ditch for your child, because they feel at that point, even though poverty plays a part, they will feel that I'm a man. I'm taking care of my responsibility. And when you do that to a young youth, what happens is he ends up in jail. Or many times he ends up in the grave, because that's part of the mindset that's formed. So I understand what both of these kings are saying. Wagga, you want to touch on this?
Yeah, it's like what I said though. It's for real. Like some of these parents, you see them when something happens, they're crying on the TV and stuff like that, but they could see what was going on in their household. They could have put a stop to it before it even got to where it got to. Turn a blind eye for some whatever reason they did, right? At a young age, I was doing what I was doing. People knew what I was doing. I'd sit in my mother's house and count my money. I mean, like I said, I was afraid of my father. I wouldn't let my father know what I'm doing. Maybe by the time I turned 16, 17, 18 now, my father probably hear what's going on and know what I'm doing. But now I'm more set and stern in my ways, thinking I'm a man. Because I've been hustling since I was 13, 14, counting grands, helping pay bills, and nobody could say nothing to me. Right? So that's where it starts from. Parents have to be more vigilant.
Let's go to the comment board. Are there any questions or comments? You guys unmute yourselves. Derek, any questions?
How can the parents stop it?
It depends on what the child's involved in. So, say the child is craving to hang out with a bad company and a bad crowd. The father has to talk to his son, or a mother has to talk to his son, find out what they could do to entertain his time. Try to reach your kids before the allure of the streets reach him and he finds that fun. That's what I've noticed.
Sorry, I have a question. So what about for like the single mothers that have to work to provide for their child? There's no father in their lives and they can't really keep up or maintain or manage what their child is doing out there in the streets. Like, what can you say to them? So single parents. There's only so much they could do, right?
There is, and that situation is very rough. But a single parent, if the mother is strong with her child, and it's a one child, two child, and she's stern from young with her child, I believe that child will grow in the way she curves him to grow. From she's paying attention to her child. Some mothers are single mothers, but they entertain a lot of men at night. So their child don't get their company. So the streets get their company. There's a lot of factors. Some women choose the wrong men to be around their child. There's so many different factors.
And I think when it comes to like gun violence, there's not one reason for the gun violence, and there's also not one reason when it comes to parenting. There's different situations. So, you know, as Marcel said, some people it's poverty. Some people have to work and they're not there. Single parent families, or sometimes the father is not a positive male role model, or sometimes it's safer for that child outside than it is in the house because of abuse, or sometimes as Wagga said, you know, moms are entertaining other men. Some moms are traumatized themselves and they have their own issues, and you know, what's in their head is to take that pain away. And sometimes that's alcohol, sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's men, whatever it may be. It still all comes back to the same thing on a systemic level of survival. And that's and as a mother, I'll tell you right now, there's a powerful bond between between a mother and a child, a son, right? So a lot of times, if the mom is strong and has supports, the child will get through. If the mother and the family is not strong and they're not supportive, because a person's success, whether it be success as a youth or success in reintegration or rehabilitation or whatever it is, a person's success comes from support. And a lot of youth, you'll see they turn to the streets and they turn to gangs because that's their support system. And whether you guys understand it or not, at the end of the day, those are the people that's protecting them. And those are the people that's giving them a way to be able to eat, because nobody else ain't doing that. Right? So it comes down to support system. Now you have families that are working moms that have to work 2-3 jobs, and they have children that are in the streets and right now, this whole gun and gang violence, people getting shot and going to jail and carrying guns, is not only for people in the hood. It's for people that are working, for people that are in the hood, for people that are, so many different avenues and ways. So you can't really label it down in one panel and say, okay, this is it alone. You know what I'm saying? But I like the fact that we can get different opinions from different people in different walks. You know what I'm saying? And that shows you yourself that there's two different reasons or two different levels to this. Like, there's so many different levels. Let's take another question or comment, and then we'll move on to the next section.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
It's, how do you convince someone making so much money at such a young age to leave it all and go straight?
Well, right now, these youth are living a different experience than before. And for us, we focus on when they're in jail, when they're on a timeout, because it's real fast out here. And unless a youth is ready to see or ready to really look and really question if it's worth it, if they want to live or die, if they want to continue to live like this, I find personally that it's easier when they're inside. Because it's real fast and money's real fast and yeah. Marcel, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so socioeconomics play a huge role in the fight. And obviously that's one of the questions that everybody asks. That's one of the tough ones: revenge, and how do we divert them from the money? Another thing we advocate for, especially working in this realm, there seems to be this notion that people who do the kind of work that we do need to do it off of blood, sweat, and tears. I started out that way because it was a passion thing. It was coming from the heart. But one of the things that kept coming back to us is when we were talking to guys that were, that are involved or whatever, was how do we convince them, to take a crappy job and go around and try and pitch to people, why this is wrong. So one of the things we strongly advocate for is people who do the kind of work that we do need to be imaging the images that these youth find cool. So that means when you really think about it, why does somebody hustle? Most don't hustle just for clout. We're seeing a lot of that more. Most of it is because they want to survive, they want to live well, they want to buy the things they're seeing on TV. So if the people who are doing this kind of work, pushing positivity, are seen as doing well, we could still bring that culture, that urban swag to what we're doing and be truthful to ourselves. But when they see you're buying homes, when you own property in other countries, when they see that you're financially stable, it's easier to convince them that this way is better because you can make all the same kind of money doing something positive and you know, live a good life. So that's one of the ways that we approach addressing substituting street cash for legit cash.
So beyond your program though, the question, if I got it correctly, was what would a mother say to a child who's making fast cash? What do they say to that child to get them out of that fast life, basically?
Okay, so that leads into the last question. The mother who's working 2-3 jobs and whatever, one of the answers for me, and I think Homeboy touched on it, is mentorship, right? So the type of man that you're bringing around those youths plays a huge role. So if he comes home with calluses on his hands, right, and he sees that this brother is taking care of mom and the bills are paid and whatnot, that usually, you know, a young person can kind of look up to that brother, right? But I don't really work outside my realm. So for us, when a mother comes to us with that kind of question, to us the answer is mentorship. Let us show them our way, because we only know our way, right? So I can't say, oh, you know, have them go to school and become an accountant, and because that's unrealistic, right? Like if they haven't started on that path from a long time ago. So we can only use the methodology in which we know, which is, hey, come look at us. We have offices in Hawaii. We have offices in Louisiana, you know, Detroit. And I'm a testament. I came from the gutter. I got bullets in my body, you know, and somehow I managed to create my own company, do it in a positive way, and make not just me, but my family, my team. Many of them are here. Hi guys, financially stable. So that's the only answer I could really give.
Can I chime in on this there?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the things that when it comes to looking at a young person and you're asking them to leave something that it's beneficial to them and rewarding to them at the time that they think it's rewarding to them, is, you know, you have to, once you take a void from someone, you have to replace it with a different void. Like you can't just take something from them and not replace it with something else. And I think that's what the problem is. It's just like when these gang raids started, we took out the leaders, and which is the elders from the community, and the community had no leaders. So, you know, when you talk about where's the OGs, the OGs were all in jail, so they all got deported. They are, you know what I mean? But there was no more mentor for them to be mentored, because again, you have to understand, even in badness, you have to be mentored. And that's the thing, you know what I mean? There's no bad man that is not mentored by another bad man that brought it into the badness. So that's what we're seeing right now in the communities, that a lot of the voids were taken from them. The leadership, the mentorship to teach them how to be bad was taken from them, and now they're being bad on their own. So they're doing things that the older generation would not have done, like shooting innocent people. You know what I mean? It's the same thing now. You tell a young person, okay, here I am. I'm bringing home. I'm putting the meal on the table. I'm paying my mom's mortgage. I'm paying my mom's rent. I'm buying my brothers and sisters Jordans. I'm the man. And you tell them to put that down. What are you going to substitute that with? Do you see what I'm saying? You have to have a void. You have to be able to substitute that void that you're taking from them. And if you can't do that, then there's no way you're going to deter them from the streets. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Right? Another part of that is education. It starts in the home. And I like that conversation that's coming from both Marcel and Kevin and Wagga, because that's important. It starts from the home. It doesn't start as the youths them are getting to teenage years when they're not even, the home is not influencing them anymore. They're being influenced, and on the streets are influencing them. Because, you know, when you reach a certain age, you pass out with 10, you're living in the hood and you're 13 years old. man, it's not even cool to listen to your mom anymore. You get what I'm saying to you? You know what I'm saying? You're not, you listen to your mom, you still going home and listen to your mom. You still going home at 9 o'clock when your mom's telling you to come home. You're like, man, come on. You know what I mean? You want to hang out with your friends. Your friends start to become your influencer. They become your mentors. But if you have a child that you have grown from a young age, and you nurture that child at a young age, and let him understand discipline and understanding, and involving that youth into recreation where he will learn that discipline, which a lot of us parents are not doing. We're not involving our kids into recreation programs when they're young to keep them to learn the discipline from those channels. We need to do that as parents. We need to involve and be more active in our kids' life. You get what I'm saying to you? And make sure we're educating them, you know what I'm saying, from the ground up, from the foundation, when they become into teenagers. And once they become into teenagers and understand the foundation, they're gonna grow in a way like, and I heard Wagga said something, he said something that was so profound. There's guys that rolled with cliques that still went to school. They still became somebody. They didn't have to do everything that somebody else in the clique did. You get what I'm saying? But if you look back at that child, go back into his family tree, go back in his family history, and you'll see what the difference are. So you want a child to be different, it starts from the foundation. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these generations now, when you're talking about the youth that's out there that's on the streets right now, that's banging and doing their things right now, it's hard to reach those. What we need to do as service provider is go back and try to hit and reach these younger generation and try to help those younger generation that is coming up now, the foundation now that's going to bring another history, another story to the new generation. You get what I'm saying to you? That they now don't have to be in fear, or they don't have to be scared of another neighborhood because a generational, it's generational that their neighborhoods don't agree with this neighborhood and that neighborhood doesn't agree with that neighborhood. But you know what though? They need understanding and educating and development from the foundation stage. We need to look at that as grown people, as service providers. You know what I'm saying? As parents, right? It's very important the image and the message that you're giving your child when you have access and the ability to mold your child. You see what I'm saying?
I agree with that. I agree with that. And that's prevention. And prevention, and that's why I'm saying when it comes to prevention, young men with lived experience need to be involved. Right? But we also, and I notice even in the pen, like when we talk about this in the pen, everyone says the same thing. We need to get the 7 and the 8-year-olds, right? We need to get them at a certain age, and it's 100% correct. And I even make sure that, you know, with my son, I have a son that's 6 and I have a son that's 28, and I make sure 27. I make sure that what I'm doing with my 6-year-old is where I drop the ball with my 27-year-old, right? But here's the thing. When we talk about that, the problem with Toronto is there's no intervention programs. So we can't just give up on the young people that are already involved. And that's why I hear what you guys are saying, but at the same time, we also have to figure out what intervention programs can work to, because there is a way out of this. I get what you're saying though. Focus on the younger youth so that the next generation coming up. I get that, but we can't leave out intervention, because if we did, then who would do what I'm doing? You know what I'm saying? It's needed. Even if it's to help bring them to a level where they can be involved in prevention, right? And even Marcel, you do intervention too, right?
Yeah, we do. That's our focus.
Right?
So we work with active youth.
And see, now that's why it's so important to have both the prevention and the intervention piece, and to have people with lived experience involved in both. And I'm not talking about photo ops. I'm not talking about for organizations to use their picture and say, hey, we have someone with lived experience. I'm talking about to have them directly involved in the programming, right? Both pieces are important. Question. Jackie, I think you said you had a question?
Yes. So I have a question. How do you cope with the guilt of knowing that you participated in these things that were happening in the community, and what are you doing to rectify your actions today?
So how do I cope? I cope by doing the work that I'm doing now. That's what drives me. I suffer from post-traumatic stress. I try to deal with that the best way I can with doctors and all that type of stuff. And then, having a good core of supportive people around me is what helped. See, I'm coming from a really different place where my change didn't come from the threat of punishment or from being in prison and having a long time to sit and think about my wrongs. The unique place I'm coming from is I stepped out at the top of my game. I was a young man and, had owning houses and businesses and clubs and bars, and, the money was really, 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 really good. But there were things that were going on that were affecting my family, that were affecting the people that I loved. And I kind of had to step out of that selfish place. Plus, there were other variables going on. The government was trying to take my organization down. So I had a really unique window and opportunity to step away from what I did on my own. And we've tried to duplicate that and teach it to others that the best time, some of the smartest OGs I've ever met, taught me about what, just as much as, you can make it something of yourself going hard, when and where to step back is just as important too. For example, some time I spent in Peru. And at the time, I was still very much a street mentality. I had the gold fronts and I had a big chain and my tattoos showing. And I met a guy, I was introduced to a guy, and he was just a little old man. And he was actually offended by my presence. And I was like, who is this guy? And he's like, yo, tell this guy to leave. He's bringing too much heat. He's bringing too much attention. Because gangster in Toronto is something different than gangster in Peru. And this man had dirt under his nails and stuff. He looked like a bum. Little did I know that day I almost lost my life. So when I got back to our spot, they told me like, yo, that's like the dude. That's like the man. And I learned something that day that, am I doing this about money, for money? Am I doing this really to, gain finances? Or am I doing this about image? Am I doing this because I want to feel good and look good and act cool and all these kind of things? So there was like a decision that kind of happened in that moment too, where I started changing the way that I presented myself. And that allowed me to grow even quicker. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. I don't know if Wagga has something he wants to add there.
What are you saying now again?
So the question was, how do you cope with the guilt knowing that you contributed? Hello?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me, Wagga?
Okay, I hear you now.
All right. So the question was, how do you cope with the guilt knowing that you participated or contributed in some of these things that are happening in community? And what are you doing now to rectify some of these actions today?
Well, some of the actions today, I have really nothing to do with it. I was locked up for a long time before I got out and changed. Well, being a part of the culture that I was involved in at that time, I live my guilt. I wake up every day and I face it. Like I said in my video, I reap what I sow. I idolized something, and what I idolized took my son.
Thank you.
Sit down.
Zia, back to you. You want a few comments? And
Yeah.
so a lot of comments around respect for the honesty and the realness from our two kings on. Marcel, somebody was saying they love the introspective Peru story. So thanks for sharing that. Again, going back to agreeing with some of the things that were said, we need resources that will supplement and what is happening in the streets. So if we're supporting them and we're transitioning them, there needs to be alternatives. So comments around that. I'm trying to find a really good question or a question, scrolling up. Zia, you could continue and then we'll come back in the next 5 minutes with a few questions.
Okay, so we're going to talk about solutions. Before we do that, I want Marcel and Wagga to have the platform to tell you what they're doing now. So first question is, why did you change? And I think you answered that a little bit, Marcel, and both of you guys answered it, so we don't have to go back to that again. But the next question is, what are you doing now? So let's talk about where can people find you, Marcel, if they want to reach out to you?
So they can check us on our platforms, www.theonebyOnemovement.com. And any of my team that's out there right now, please send that in the messages. You can check us on our social media at the One by One Movement on Facebook, IG, and you could also come out to some of the areas that we're trying to help and support. Recently, we were not one for really asking for money. We're more about working for money, right? So we chase contracts and whatnot, and then use that money to give back in our way. But, from a lot of people supporting the cause and giving us good advice, we've recently added a donate button to the website at onebyOnemovement.org, not .com, .org. So, step up and help us out, help us give back.
Thank you. And Wagga, can you tell us what you're doing now and how can people reach out and get involved in what you're doing? You're on mute. Oh, shit. You're on mute, Wagga.
Is it on mute?
Yeah, you're good
Hello?
now.
Yeah, me? I'm just doing me, man. I'm quiet. I breed dogs. I sell protection dogs, Presa Canarios. You can check me out at Border City Presa on Instagram. I actually got a litter, but they're mostly all sold. That's what I do now.
Okay, so say that again. Say my team, if you could put his contact in the message board, please. And say your contact again.
Border City Presa. I breed Presa Canario dogs.
Okay, yeah.
Nice dog.
Okay, let's see. Can we see the puppies, the babies?
Yes.
Wow.
Aw. Okay, nice. All right, thank you. Did you guys put the their contacts in the message board?
Yes, I dropped the handle that Wagga shared in there.
Okay, great. And Marcel, have your
Yeah,
people?
Marcel's handles were put in there as well.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so now we are going to touch on solutions. What do we do now? Where do we go from here? Marcel, let's start with you.
Well, I think things like this are a good start, but you know, people like yourself, people like me, the list is very short actually, as to people who can address the issue of that. We separate that at risk from high risk, as you were mentioning, the prevention from the intervention part. So really, what it's about for us, one big issue is there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. You know, there's a lot of agencies that are collecting big funds, the government supports, or whomever supports because they have a good pitch. You know, they have a good sales package. So I would stress to you, to the listeners, before you support an organization, look deeply into their activities, look deeply into their messaging, make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing, or at least trying. You know, don't just pick the one that looks the shiniest and newest or is claiming certain things. Look at their work. See if they have data to track. You know, look at the people around them, and if there is actually proof that they're really on what they say they're on. More and more discussions like this need to be had. There have been some panels that I've been on with formers. So we'll continue to do that, and hopefully we could have something like this carry on. But really, what it's going to take, beyond the agencies, beyond the government, it starts with you. It starts with you in the communities who are around these youths, who see it, who are complacent to it. You know, we need to step up and start caring for our communities. We need to take them back in a sense. You know, because what we're seeing these days, for me anyway, I don't relate it to gangsterism. Like, gangsterism means something else to me. What we're seeing today is more along the lines of like extremism, you know, terrorism, because when you attack, the ideology of gangsterism is one thing and should only be one thing: capital gains, money. If that's not the main component, then it's something else. So yeah, support, look into groups that are out there actually trying to do good work, and support those groups. That's part of the solution.
Thank you. And Wagga, what do you think? What do you think we can do now?
I really think you don't like to hear it, but we got to focus on the younger generation. Keep them away from that generation that's already made that choice. Those that made that choice, they're going to have to learn the hard way. I had many people reaching out to me, even when I was 17, 18, 19, I didn't want to listen. Even when I got shot, I didn't want to listen. So they're going to listen if they want to listen. You got to reach the ones that when they're young and catch them before they glorify what they see.
Okay, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents now. The first step is listening to people with lived experience. So that's one thing. That's a positive right now. I think that, and Wagga, you touched on this yesterday when we spoke. A lot of times organizations are focused on people with degrees, and they don't understand that to really reach some of these young people, it's not about a degree. It's about lived experience, but someone who's reflected and has taken accountability and has passed it as a living testimony, in a sense, right? There's a lot of amazing youth workers out here in this city, but they're being used as photo ops in organizations who the orgs really are standing because of that frontline worker. and that frontline worker is not being treated properly. They're not being paid properly. They're not like they're in the line of fire, right? And that's a problem, because a lot of people can't really fully change if they don't have the ability to survive. So you have people with 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You have people that just, they're not able to fully give it their 100. And that's because, to be quite honest, funders fund people with great essays. They fund people who look the part. They fund their friends. It's politics in this city is as much politics in the streets as it is in the social sector. Seeing, like, there's no way about it. So if we really want change, number one, we have to understand, and all these people that keep talking about they have the answers for the gun violence, they need to sit down, hold a corner, bro, because you don't have the answers, because you don't understand the issues. You need to hear the people that have the understanding, and stop looking at someone just because they look like that's another thing too. A lot of people hire people because they're black. They think, and that's racism in itself, because you think that choose someone's black, they have lived experience. You think that's because someone comes from a high-risk neighborhood that makes them involved. You don't even know the difference between gang involved, gang affiliated, and gang influence. So I'm going to say this again. The first thing is understanding, and that's where I think it's a good thing right now, because a lot of time, a lot of panels have a lot of people that talk a lot of shit and act like they're from what it is, and they're not. And this panel is a little bit different. So number one is to get that understanding, and when you get the understanding, take those judgments and park them, because a lot of people have a lot of judgments. Park them, because these people are actually speaking the truth, so that, and they're not even charging, so that you can gain some understanding for the people that you work with. So that's number one, is understanding. Number two is having people with lived experience involved in prevention and intervention. And understanding, again, because you might pick the wrong one. You might pick someone who has lived experience and has no accountability and is in it for the wrong reason. So that, again, is where you need experts, right? Stop jumping on every funding opportunity. You know what I'm saying? It's not about that. This is not a hustle. We understand that's your hustle, but it's not in the streets. It's real. And our people are dying. It's not a hustle. So when we look down and say, oh, look at these gang leaders that recruited youth. So what are you doing? You're hustling a community to feed your family and live in big houses. And at the end of the day, who's suffering and who's getting killed? And why is that? Because you're jumping on an opportunity that you have no business jumping on. Number two. Number 3 or 4, stop locking up young people without rehabilitation programming. And the community needs to put a demand on the government and CSC. Stop locking up young people and putting them in cages for 22 hours a day with nothing to do. What the hell do you expect they're going to do when they come out? You are turning people into animals. And then you want to cry and complain about the gun violence. It is the community's fault. You are the taxpayers. We are the taxpayers. And I don't hear nobody talking about it, because everybody wants to play like they're the expert and they don't have any knowledge in it. So when you look down at people and you say they need to go to jail, understand what that's doing to your family that's coming up when they come out, and the community that follows them comes out. Right? Number 3, 4, 5, I don't even know where we are. We need programming for mothers and families. We need supports for families. Proper supports, because if a child is good, if a mother's good, his child will be good. If a mother's not good, it's very hard for that child. That support system is everything. And yes, we need positive male role models who have changed their life, who these young people can identify with. Because fathers are very important, but when a father's not there, you need someone that a child can look up to relate to. And it is very important to have strong males, just as it's important to have healthy females. So that's just a few things that I'm going to say. And then also to have some support. We have a lot of programming and a lot of funding for youth. What about young adults? What about young people who are stuck in the age that they went to jail in and come out, and then there's nothing for them because they're over the age? What about them? They're stuck in a specific age and in a culture, and then there's absolutely nothing for them. And another thing too is we need to have a program that focuses on wealth building, not a program, because there's a lot of programs right now. And I must say, I'm really impressed in the city, but we need to have a little bit more of a focus on trades, young people learning trades in prison, and education programs, and then young people in the community on a wealth building tip and a career tip, not just jobs, but careers, proper careers, right? So there's a lot of pieces, and that's why one organization can't take care of that. 2 organizations can't take care of that. You know what I'm saying? We need to have multiple strong organizations who are truly invested and have people that understand. So solutions and moving forward, I'm going to say to begin with is understanding, and it really there needs to be some self-reflection amongst organizations and service providers and funders, to be quite honest. Other than that, we in the streets need to take care of the streets, and we need to make a change because change comes from within, and we cannot depend on them outside. We need to make sure that on a systemic level, the community has to deal with the systemic level, but on a personal level, we got to deal with the personal level because, yeah, there's issues systemically, but there's some serious issues personally, right? So we can't just say, oh, everything is systemic, because on a personal level, we got issues we have to deal with. So it's hand in hand. And before we wrap up, I have a question for Wagga. How has Think Twice impacted you? How do you know Think Twice as an organization? So not me personally, but as an organization. And how has Think Twice impacted you?
I first met Think Twice on my first or second pen bid. And it made big impacts. We sat and talked. First, I think my first pen bid, I joined BIFA and started talking with Bev. And then it went on till Think Twice came in the picture. More thinking, more talking, more reasoning. And then my last pen bid, I believe I reached a point where at one point my body and my mind were thinking 2 different ways. And then more situations happened that just made me really think, okay, I'm done. I can't take it no more. And then when I lost my son, that was it. And I made the decision to say I'm out of it. So you helped me go through those transitions at that time.
Straight. All right, we'll close it at that. But I want to thank you both. I really appreciate you both from the bottom of my heart. And we're gonna, Jackie, if you want to take over.
Sure. Thank you guys so much. We're going to do a wrap up. Thank you to the kings on here who were so transparent, so real, and so willing to be on this call to share their stories, share some of their wisdom, some of their expertise, talk about what you guys have been doing now. So we appreciate that so much on behalf of our team. Just to wrap up, message board, I know there's been a lot of questions and comments made, and we are looking to have another session in the next couple of weeks. So we will filter through and see what questions have not been touched on and try to incorporate in our next session. But I also want to say that this is a taste. This is a taste of what Think Twice does for the community. Right? They have such a level of respect and knowledge within the communities and the people that they and those that they serve, where many people don't. As you heard Big Sis Zia talking from her heart a while ago, the end, she knows what she's talking about. She hears it, she sees it. So this is a taste of what Think Twice does, and this is a taste also of what our documentary will be about. Story sharing, talking about some of these important issues and some solutions to how we can support and heal our community, because a big part of it is healing in our communities as well. And with healing, we are able to then action out some of the solutions with whatever mechanisms we come up with. So our documentary, which you've heard a little bit about, and you've heard a few clips from it, we are now working on that, and a lot of our focus is to that, because again, there are a lot of stories that need to be shared. So as was talked about earlier, you can go on our website, think2.org, to hear more about to donate to the development of the documentary, and also to learn more about what Think Twice does. For those who haven't visited our websites or any of our handles, which will be dropped in the chat, or has been dropped in the chats a few times, take a look, see what else we do. For those who are interested in having more conversation or being a part of conversations, if you want to leave your contact information or your name, you can privately DM or chat me in the group chat or in the chat there, and we can see how we can work together collaboratively.
I just want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
Before we lose people, December the 9th, so that's 2 weeks, we're doing a part 2, and Jellystone will be a host, Wagga will be on, and we're talking about retaliation, grief, and PTSD in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk a little bit more about Wagga's story. Yeah, go ahead.
Again, and then some of the questions that we have here, we'll see how we can incorporate into the next session. So yeah, again, that was where I was going with this. Our next session is December the 9th. And again, retaliation, grief, PTSD in the streets will be a main part of our discussion. I think Zia wanted to end off with a couple questions that for takeaways, so that you can take it away and maybe we can talk about it at our next session. So Zia, go ahead. Again, thank you for tuning in. Again, we'll drop Marcel and Wagga's handles in the chat, and as well as Think Twice's for those who want to hear more.
I just had one question. So what stuck out to you the most, and can you write it on the message board? So I want to know what stuck out to you guys the most.
Yes.
And then also there's the little feedback form, right?
Yes, so there is a poll that we're going to put on the screen in a few seconds. It's just 3 questions, and it's multiple choice. So whoever's on, if you can feel free to fill it out, that would be great. So I'm going to launch it now. I'm looking to see, okay, so we have a few hands raised. We have Urban Rez here, so I'm going to unmute them. They can come on.
What up, Zia?
What's poppin'?
Great job tonight, man. Smile, no, that's just see the smile now. Finally, that's it. That's so great. That's it. Yeah, just great job, great conversations. Just wanted to, send kudos to your organization for putting on an amazing event. The conversations were real, and I just wanted to commend you and all that you're doing. And obviously, there's, as Marcel and the Wagga said, there's no real one solution to this, but I think together, collectively, we all can come up with solutions to make it happen and just change the lives. And, just one of the things I just wanted to put in the convo before we end off is that we just got to be cognizant of some of our decisions. And yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people that have contributed to our demise as a community when it really looks at it from a proportionate lens. But, ultimately at the end of the day, we still got to take responsibility for our own. And, in terms of our choices, just try to make the best choices now that we have a lot of examples for people who've gone through the hardships, have gone through the ringer. And, if we can't learn from their mistakes or just learn from the path that they take, then we're just as, you know what I mean? I'm not even going to say, obviously, foolish, but we can't just continue to do things that just don't work. It's the definition of insanity. So, again, just pick up to you and yours and just keep on doing it. Ounce of prevention, day one.
Thank you. Bless up.
That's the last thing. So, y'all were talking about prevention, intervention, but in the sense of urban resolutions, we're also into the reinvention, and then obviously that's what you're doing also. So the three. Big up, Jackie. Do your thing. I'm glad to see you, girlfriend.
Myra, thank you.
All
Bless.
right. Thank you.
All right, bless. All right, we have a hand raised from Sherry Phillips. So I'm gonna unmute her. Sherry? Okay, I tried to unmute her, but nothing. All right, so we also have Robin Rice.
Hey everybody. So yeah, I just more had a comment on a lot of the things that I was hearing. Usually I like speaking a lot because I'm Indigenous and I also work with Indigenous youth with incarcerated loved ones. And I also have a teen myself, so it's been very hard knowing that I lived on the streets. And, you know, sometimes I look at the intergenerational trauma that my mom has been through, and I just started relearning about this, about intergenerational trauma as I'm in university taking my course, because obviously, like, there was a lot of people who said in here, it's almost like we need that educational background to be in a higher community. So I just wanted to thank everybody. I learned a lot, and I'll definitely keep in touch because I think there's a lot more that we could also do together. And yeah, sorry, I thought I was in pause, but I don't want to take up the whole time. I just will keep in contact. And Marcel and Wagga, thank you so much for your stories. Me living on the streets on the whole Jane Strip. Yeah, I've heard about a lot of stories coming from both of you guys, from the Gators and from Looney Tunes, of course. So I want to say thank you so much, and I'm very proud of where everybody is right now. So miigwech.
Thank you, Robin, for speaking. We have Spin from One Mic Educators here. Spin, are you unmuted? Trying to unmute him.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yo, all my love and respect, you know, to Zia, to all y'all supporting her, Brother Derek, yourself. I just wanted to salute, you know, Wagga and Marcel and give respect to the ways that they've chose to live their life at this point. I think people assume that sometimes if you have a past, you have to be doing a certain thing a certain way to make up for it. And so I just really rate, you know, Wagga doing the business side of it and doing something that's authentic to him. And then I also rate Marcel on the community work and the community side of it. And I think there's equal value to both. And I just wanted to know from these guys, like what, you know, for those of us that are still on the call, what messages, and for you too, Zia, what messages do you want to share to us that are out here in community putting in work, but that are coming across these bozos that are trying to front like they've had a certain experience, or they're trying to appropriate the real life pain that you guys have struggled, and we're seeing them get the money and we're seeing them get positioned when you guys are the ones that should be getting resourced for the quality that you do and the experience that you've had to live through. What message would you send to us in dealing with those people?
I would say don't let it make you negative. It was very hard for me. I hate the social sector. I think the social sector is full of snakes. And the worst part about it is they smile in your face, and then they, you know what I mean? Like, it's worse in the streets. So for anybody to ever look down at anyone in the streets, I'll be the first one to get at them, because, you know, things might be done a different way, but there's way more love in the streets than there is in the social sector.
Facts.
Right? So for me, I would say, for someone coming up like me, just don't focus on them. And there's a lot of bullying in the social sector, and just don't let the negativity get you. You know, keep focused on what your goal is. Keep focused on the assignment and the purpose. And for me, I want to get the hell out of here. So I can't wait to get the hell out of the social sector and really focus on, you know, something else and give back. Because you don't need to be in the social sector to give back and help.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But yeah, that's for myself. And yeah, just and as I'm talking to you and to whoever else, I'm speaking to myself because it's hard. It's real hard.
Yeah, man.
But
Love
yeah.
to hear from Wagga and Marcel too.
Wagga, Marcel, you guys still on?
No.
Or Mikey even.
Mikey, you still on? Don't tell me everybody came off.
I think Wagga's still on, and I see Mikey. Well, wait, maybe Mikey's gone. No. Oh, he's here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Mikey's there. Marcel left.
Wags.
Yeah.
Spin, say the question again.
Yeah, Wags. So first, I just wanted to send a salute, you know, for you running your business and setting that up. And I was just commenting that sometimes it seems like people think that because you had a certain life, you might have to deal with it a certain way. But I respect you for running a business, you know, same way with Marcel doing the community work. And I wanted to know from you, as someone that's lived it, you know, and lost a child to it, like what do you have to say for us out in the community, doing the community work, trying to do everything we can for the youth that's getting caught up in the system, but having to deal with all these snakes in the grass and all these bozos that are really savvy at getting money, but are not really, you know what I'm saying? Like they're appropriating the life that you've had to live. Like how would you advise for us as community workers to deal with this?
Man, it's rough. Like the child that you're working on, the child that you're close to, you got to find out what's very interesting to him. You got to find out what's interesting to that child. Each child is different. Each child has something that's unique.
Mm-hmm.
Me growing up, I liked weapons. I really liked weapons. So if somebody had took that when I was a child at 13, 14 years old and put me into the cadets, put me somewhere that they could teach me about weapons, teach me how to respect it. Maybe I wouldn't have learned how to grab a weapon in the streets. I would have learned something different. I would have been stirred in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you got to do. You got to find the child. If what does he like? What is his interest? And build on it. Curve it. Build it. Feed it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that, brother.
We jump on that. What's up, big man? How are you, man?
Yes, King. Big
What's
Wilson.
going on, brother?
Good
to see you. Good to hear from you. What I would say is, like, touching on your question, I'm gonna touch the end part of your question. Okay? Giving up, key. Never giving up. Right? We teach these youth to be resilient. So we, as service providers, need to be resilient too. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? What happens if you gave up, I gave up, and Azia gave up, and other service providers that are doing the real work? What if they gave up? What would happen to the youth that you, or the youth that you were able to support, and the youth that can go back to you and say, hey, it's because of your intervention in my life that made me different. You see what I'm saying? So it's continue to do that work in the capacity that you could do the work on. You understand? And through that, you get recognized. Through that, you know, by God's grace, you will be able to be put on a platform where you can do greater work. Sometimes it's not the big organization that's doing, many times it's not the large organization that's doing the real impact in the streets. It's those little small grassroots organizations that is doing the real impact and touching the community in the way that the community, and healing the community, right? And helping the community to heal in the way that the community needs to be healed. You understand? But the government needs, and I don't like touching on the government, but I'm gonna say this: people that provide funding to organization that works on grassroots level, that is working within the community, needs to recognize that. Zia said something. She talked about, you know, employing people with real experience. I understand the magnitude of that. You need to make sure that when you do that, you're getting somebody that's really crossed over and saying, hey, I'm done with that. I'm done with the streets. I'm ready to put my heart and soul into supporting the community and helping these youths within the community and helping them get to a place where I didn't get to, or get to, for them to start dreaming and having hope and having a different lifestyle that I didn't have. You see what I'm saying to you? But at the end of the day, brother, it's about, and sisters, it's about us not giving up. You know what I'm saying? Where's your passion? Where's the passion? The passion when you first came into this is for the work that you're doing. And a lot of times through the process, we lose that passion. You know what I'm saying to you? You make the funders dictate to you the kind of work that you do. Funders can't dictate to me what kind of work I do. I'm passionate about this. I don't do this for money. I do this for the youths. So if I'm doing this for the youths and my passion to give back to my community and help those that's in my community, then that doesn't dictate the work I do, the quality of work I do. The quality of work is consistent if I'm getting funding or not.
Absolutely.
That's the real talk. And we and this separation between organizations because of funding makes no sense. First of all, we're not in this game because we're trying to compete or we're trying to hustle or we're trying to see who is getting the more money and we have to. No, brother, it's about, and sisters, it's about the youth and servicing the youth. That's it. So the funding shouldn't divide us in terms of serving the youths and serving the community. The objective of what we do is to serve the community. Our clients come first, not the funders. They don't dictate. You're saying they can dictate how they want the structure to look like, but they can't dictate the real work that is being done. We do that. And you got to take ownership of that. You got to hang that up and you got to understand that. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes Think Twice makes it different within the community. That's what makes Think Twice can go into certain communities that other organizations cannot go into. Because the people in the community recognizes Think Twice for the work that they do and know that the work that they do is really genuine, with money or not, to service that community. That's the real deal. And we all have to get to that place and stop fighting, chasing down funding and looking at it, you know what I mean, and competing because of this funding thing and really hating on each other because of overfunding when we're missing the point. The point is not about us.
Yeah.
The point is about the work that we do. And we need to keep that in the forefront of our heads and understand that is what we are. Like I said before in the beginning, it doesn't matter what position you put me in. I don't care if I'm a manager or not. I am a youth worker, period. That's my job. That's my title. And I'll always keep that title no matter what. It doesn't matter if you put me as manager. I don't care if I turn into EDA. I'm always going to be a youth worker.
Thank you, Mikey. We have one other person with their hand raised. I'm just going to let them in so they can say, you know, what they want to say here. So I see Queen Levels.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Anisha. So basically, I love this conversation. I agree 100% with everything you guys are talking about. I grew up in Rexdale, Jamestown to be exact. I was never a part of a gang, but the trauma from gang activity definitely inflicted trauma into my life. So I definitely understand the space that you all are coming from, and I want to commend you, Zia. I don't really know you personally, but our children went to the same daycare, so I recognize your face. So
Yeah,
big up yourself, sis, on the initiative and everything that you're doing. And I just want to let you guys know that I myself, I'm also a grassroots worker. I have an organization called Queens Leveling Up, which is focused on holistic healing for melanated women, to basically build their capacity and level up in life altogether. And definitely we need to come together more as grassroots organizations and come and work together. A piece that I'm working on, that we're working on currently, is we're looking to acquire the land, some land in Tanderidge, to do farming on, because we want to control our food, we want to control our spaces, and we want to have access to be able to control our own well-being and create spaces where healing can be fostered and community. We don't live in no communities right now. We're in neighborhoods. By definition, we don't got no community, and we need that. And a lot of what we're seeing is basically a disconnect from our roots. Like, this is not who we truly are as melanated people. And that's why we're having a lot of these experiences. The next thing about it that you touched on that I love was when you talk about, don't cry to the government, The government ain't going to do shit to change shit, because this is the same system, racist systems of oppression that they created to have us how they have us right now. So looking to them to do anything, to fix anything, that ain't going to work. So we have to do stuff for ourselves, and we have to create our own economics, and we have to basically take our issues into our own hands and fix our problems by ourselves, because only we have the tools, the knowledge, and the know-how inherently to be able to do that. So big up yourself again, sis. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Message us your info. All right, cool. Anyone else?
No, those are all the hands that were up.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else wants to speak. Please just raise your hand quickly or drop it in the chat and we can get you in.
I see there's 110 people on here, so.
Yeah, there's one hand raised. You want to take that?
Sure.
Okay. I just gave. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, yeah, thanks for doing this panel. I'm really glad I found out last minute from some people I work with in Regent Park. And I'm really glad that I was able to stay on and listen to all the information. And I don't hail from no organization. I'm just a single mom living in and around Regent Park. And I just decided after we lost a young boy named Makai a few years ago, he got shot in the building. I'm sure you guys remember the story. And I just decided after that, I had to bring my children to the funeral. And, my oldest set of children, I had brought them to funerals. But never, ever, I have 6 children. And never, ever would I have thought that my youngest 3 children, who are, now 15, 14, and 9, I took my daughter to her first funeral, at 6 years old. And it was the worst thing. And it was that day that I decided that I wasn't going to wait on any organizations or, just the community leaders, which, big up, shout out to all the community leaders down at Regent Park. But I decided that I needed to be on the ground, and I changed the way I approach these youths. And I just, I'm on the ground. I'm basically, a single mom. I don't have a lot, but I'm just on the ground. I take these children, to Niagara Falls whenever I can. I take them to national parks. I just do little basic things with them to get them out of the hood and to make them understand that there's other things that they can do. And one thing that I realize is that if we watching these youths, and I get to see generations down here in Regent Park. So I've gotten to see my generation, and I've gotten to see, Smoke's generation. I got to see, the 90s generation, and I got to see, how things went and the movements of how the gang violence has escalated. Because back in our days, one guy in the crew had a gun. It wasn't like every single person had a gun. And if you were going to go use that gun, you had to have permission of more than one person, and to just pull out your gun and start opening fire on people. It was so different. Today, it's like all these youths just have guns. It's like it's a constant. It's just so bad now. And I decided that I'm just going to hit the streets. And that's what I do. And like during this COVID, when we came out of our lockdown, I was just down here, and I'm sure you guys, you might not know, you might know, but we've had like several big high-profile shootings down here, and a lot of them didn't make the news, and we could have lost so much lives, back in September. Actually, that did make the news. We had 6 young boys. They're not even men, they're boys, shot at 26 times, almost lost their lives, and it's horrible. And it's like, it's like a never ending cycle. And what these youths don't realize is that Jane and Finch and Regent Park been at this war for like 35 years. I'm 49, and I remember, those days was Floyd and Danny and I can't remember Rick. I mean, they're all, dead now. But those are the guys, and the whole war at Regent Park and Jane and Finch started over a chain snatching 35 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still warring today. And this younger generation, they'll have no clue what they're warring about. They don't understand the beef, and it never existed in their time. They weren't even born. They weren't even thought of. Some of their parents weren't even born when this war started in Jane Finch and Regent Park. So I'm just trying to, I try to talk with parents. I sit with parents. I was on the streets. I was doing, I did all my, stuff that I did. And, this is my way of giving back and trying to, to do my part, with these young youths. And I get so much joy from it, just watching the smile on their face. They call me. I'm in partial quarantine right now because my cousin was murdered over in the States. So I had to go over there, and I came back sick. So, I'm in a partial quarantine now, and I just keep hearing. I just make sure that I take them swimming. I just spend as much time as organic. I don't have money. I don't spend no money on them. I go to No Frills and Freshco, and I'm a vegetarian, so they're like, oh gosh, Sugar's giving us their veggie meat now, and I just like make them sandwiches, pack them food. We just go on picnics. We just do fun stuff, and it's hard for me to get out the older youths, but I still do it. I still manage to, people are amazed. I still manage to round them up too, like the ones that are 14, 15, and 16. But, I focus a lot too on the ones that are 8, 9, 10, 11. And I have a crew of them that I just let them my little flock, and I'm trying to guide them and hopefully prevent them from entering the gang life. I do a lot of job training down here in Regent Park. I had 17 youths who got their first aid CPR training. They applied for City of Toronto jobs. Unfortunately, we've gone into a lockdown now, so they may not be able to get hired this season, but they're all trained and ready to work. And it's amazing just to see, the smiles on their face when they succeeded. Actually, just a quick thing. 2 days before these 5 boys were shot at, I had all of them at a CPR training, and they all completed their CPR first aid level C training. And 2 days after that, they all almost lost their lives.
Wow.
So these youth, they wanna succeed. And if I was to show you the text messages from some of these young men, they're like, Sugar, like I need a job, and what can I do, and where? So I'm trying to work with some stores down here in the park to try and hire these youths within the community, so that when little youths see these youths working, they can look up to them, as opposed to them being on the street. They can see them working in No Frills, working in the Tim Hortons, working in the Wendy's, and and give them the younger ones some inspiration and motivation, because we need that, and you guys know we're going through revitalization down here, and it's not working.
Right.
The revitalization is not working. It's actually gentrification, and it's happening. Obviously it can't be stopped, but it's done a lot of detriment to the community. And they thought that if they put up all these fancy new buildings that it was going to go away, and clearly it hasn't. And when Mackay died, he died in one of the brand new building is only up for a year, or maybe a little long, maybe like 3 years, and he died in that building. So it's not changing. But I'm just doing my part. Like I'm just doing my part, and I really I enjoy it. And That's it. Yeah. So I just want to tell you my little story, and
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. And that's what's going to make the difference, right? So you doing what you're doing is what's going to make a difference in the community. So keep doing what you're doing. Can you send us your information? Can she hear me?
Yeah, I think her
I already
internet.
did. I actually sent it to you. I want to connect with you and get some resources. So I sent it to you in your inbox.
I need to know it's you though. What's your name or what name? Sugar. Okay. I'm gonna link you. But yeah, keep doing your thing. That's how I
Thank you,
got
man.
it.
You too. I know you too, man. You too.
Thank
I think we know each other.
Yeah, straight good.
That's big, Sugar. Keep up the work, man. That's what it's all
Yes,
about.
thank you.
Right? With people like you is what they need, right?
Yep.
And even before Zia even got in this pathway, it was just like you.
I was that. That's me.
That's it. That's Zia. She was just like that.
Yeah.
With no money.
Definitely.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's your
For
purpose
sure.
and it's your joy because it's your people. So yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Definitely. 100%.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bless up yourself.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right,
you
Zia,
too,
I have.
man. Stay safe.
All right. Yes,
I'm
John?
gonna. Yeah, I have another. 1 second.
No, don't worry. Tisha, come on,
Hello, Galaxy 8 Plus.
Yeah. You hear me?
Yes.
Z,
Yo.
that was powerful.
Super powerful.
That was powerful.
Okay.
Your whole Think Twice movement, big up to you guys. You're going to get a lot of criticism. I can't say a lot, but you're going to get some criticism because, someone's always going to find something bad to say. But keep doing what you're doing. This was powerful. We should do this every week.
2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. I can't.
We should do this every week. Real shit. I feel we should do this every day.
Right.
I don't know. Is Wag still on? Is Wag still there?
Wagga, you still there?
No, I don't think so.
I think he's walking his dogs, to be honest with you.
That was big. That was big, man. Just to see the turnarounds, both of them, because I heard about Wagga in the streets and everything, and that was big. Still, that was very big.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Good.
If you could do something like that every week or every month, because every week is probably a little bit too extreme, but every month with two, it doesn't even have to be rivals, just two, that would be sick and powerful.
I think that's what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
Once a month, two different, or even 3 different people, or 2 different people, and that's it.
Yeah, that was powerful. Big up, you guys. Keep doing what you guys are doing. You know what I'm saying? I'll be tuning in.
Okay, bless.
Yeah, thank you.
Bless. All right, thank you.
All right, done now.
All right.
We have 2 more with their hands up. You want? We can take it, and that will be it.
Yeah, anybody that wants to talk, yes. If you guys have to jump off, I'll stay on.
So I just unmuted Charmaine.
Okay.
Hey Zia, hey Tasha, it's me. I came in late, I'm sorry. I'm just echoing what everyone said. This was very powerful. A couple of things that I wanted to say is that for me, when I talk to the youth, they've lost hope. Like there's nothing for them to either live for or look forward to. So we have to find a way to give them hope again.
Yeah.
To give them something to look forward to.
Yeah.
I agree. And I know Zia is a very spiritual person like me, and so we also have to get back to our root, our spiritual root. For me, that's the most high. Whatever that looks like for people, we have to get these kids back to their root. I remember my grandmother taking me to church. When I speak to the Muslim kids, they've lost that connection. I speak going to the masjid or speaking to their imam. So somehow getting them connected to their roots, because we all have a root and everything starts at the root.
Yeah.
And then it's those early messages that we get. We have a lot of broken people bringing up our brokenness is transferred to our kids, right?
Yeah.
So because we haven't healed,
we
can't we can't heal them. So when Zia talks about creating these conversation circles where we talk to the parents, and I mean, that's where it starts too.
Yep.
Because and the streets are going to raise them, and if they're not on that path to healing, then they're just going to be re-traumatized. So there's so many factors to it. I'm trying to keep it concise, but speaking for myself, broken, dysfunctional home. So what did I do? I went out into the streets. I went for somebody to love me and to help me, and the love that I was seeking didn't come from them, but for me, I realized it came from God, the Most High. So those are just a couple of things that I wanted to say. Keep up the good work. And it's easy to get burnt out. Zia's been begging me to help her, and she can slap my hand tonight. But I'm so burnt out, and it's a lot of people that are burnt out. But at the same time, we have to realize that if we don't do it, who will?
Straight up.
And that's what I'm gonna say.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So I'm
Charmaine.
done.
And we have another work to do too, me and you.
Yes, we do.
Whenever you're
That's
ready.
a huge part of it too.
Yep. Child sex abuse. I can't wait
Oh
till God
gosh.
leads me over there, because I'm coming for some people.
Yeah. And for a lot of the women in this game, trust me, 1 in 2 women have sexual trauma.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, that's another topic for another day.
Yep. But I love you.
Thank you. Love you too, girl. Later, Tash.
Charmaine.